Minecraft the Mountain, Chapter 10. This way, said Summer, striding across the netherrack desert. We skirted the occasional pit and random fire, and every half-minute or so, Summer would just stop, put up her hand for silence, and listen to the still, stinking air. The one time I asked what she was trying to hear, all I got back was, hopefully, nothing. Eventually, we came to one of those giant, sloping columns that rose up and into the distant roof. As we turned the corner, I blinked hard at something that couldn't exist. Snow blocks? 2 lines of them, spaced roughly a dozen or so blocks apart and intersecting in the middle of another open plain. Is that? No, answered my clairvoyant partner. It's actually a local mineral called nether quartz, and its contrast makes for an excellent landmark. I noticed that each smooth, pale block was topped with a torch, and that the intersection was also marked with 4 wooden signposts. It's really easy to get lost here, Summer continued. Just check your compass. I did. The needle spun and jerked like it was trying to find its way home. Same goes for maps. Blank ones suddenly look like someone's thrown drippy brown and gray paint down their faces. And those U arrows in the middle twirl as madly as compass needles. So, I said, shaking my head, in addition to falling into lava and maybe having a whole horde of zombie ghouls after you, getting lost is a serious threat. Summer completed the thought. Believe me. I believed her, and respected her even more. First the taiga, now the nether. Ice, then fire. Is there a challenge Summer can't conquer? I marveled as we approached the collection of signposts. The left one read, Mind out, and the right, low-hanging fruit. And then there was the ice cube sign directly in front of us, which seemed like a joke. What's that? I asked, pointing to the third sign. You'll see eventually, said Summer, turning for Mind out. The sign's not technically true, she said, heading down the trail of nether quartz. There's this one pesky deposit I could never manage to reach safely. She pointed up, far up, to a bright spot in the roof above. There it was, glowstone, a cluster of yellow, luminous blocks. They used to be all over this bit, explained Summer. When I first arrived, they dotted the roof like clouds. It's beautiful, I said, wondering what this place must have looked like then. It was easy enough to grab most of them, continued Summer, but this one stubborn little bit just kept taunting me for ages. Do you really need it? I asked, not challenging, but genuinely curious. I mean, couldn't we finish our mission faster if we just moved on to easier pickings? Well, another unusual, very unsummerly pause. Then, if all you care about is the easy way of doing things... What? No! Suddenly, I felt very defensive. No way. I'm totally up for anything. Then, you could help me finish my ramp. Summer nodded, lowering her fist to what I originally had thought was a hill. Looking closer, I saw it was no more than a ramp, a staircase to nowhere that ended abruptly halfway to the roof. I never managed to finish this one, she said. Not before one of them showed up. Them? Who's them? Is that what you keep looking for? One of them? Brrrr. That wasn't Summer. The sound came from far away. What? I started to ask. Shh! Summer raised her bow, twisting in all directions, like my crazy compass needle. Brrrr. There it was again. A high, crackling wheeze, like air leaking out of a bag. Get your bow, whispered Summer, and watch for anything moving. My bow was already out, and my eyes were already scanning the haze. Another sound, a strange, eerie twitter. Wee wee woo woo. I whispered just one word. What? And got just one word in reply. Gasped. Wee wee woo woo. You never know when you'll spot one, whispered Summer, and you'll have to spot them first. The tension in her voice was the first I'd heard since we met. Summer, the tough, no-nonsense warrior, who seemed to have everything figured out, was worried, which made me positively freaked. Went a high wail, rising, then falling in the cotton candy mist. Look everywhere, whispered Summer. Up, down. They can come from anywhere. What do they look like? I gulped, cowering behind my shaking bow. They float, she answered, turning slowly in a full circle, like giant balloons. The ethereal twittering began again, sending my teeth chattering. It's under us. Summer's eyes fell. The space between land and lava. Her bow dipped slightly, coming to a rest at the line where the plains ended at a cliff. Watch for it rising. I tried, matching my aim to hers. A few seconds, waiting, holding my breath for what seemed like hours. Fainter this time, farther away. It's leaving. Summer sighed, lowering her weapon. We've got a bit of time. She took off, running for the staircase. I followed, with a mouthful of questions. Where had it gone? What did it take to kill one? What could they do to us? I didn't get a chance to ask. Summer was quickly already tossing me a stack of netherrack. Quickly, I'll be back soon. I watched her rush over to the edge of the unfinished staircase, just beneath the wall that ended in the highest step. Do as I do, she commanded, then jumped straight up and placed a netherrack block beneath her. Genius, I thought, repeating the same action next to her. So simple. Jump and place. Why hadn't I ever thought of doing that? We hopped atop the rising columns, past the last step. Brill, commented Summer, looking at the nearly reached glowstone. Only 3 to go. We rushed down the staircase, around to the edge, and repeated the process. I'm almost at a netherrack, I said, looking at my dwindling stock. Just take some from the bottom, she said, racing to stack a third column. Duh. Grabbing my pickaxe, I started chopping at the center base. The crunchy, purplish material gave less resistance, less than stone or even dirt. Within seconds, netherrack cubes were flying into my belt. Hurry up then, called Summer from the top of her newly finished step. We're almost finished. Be right there, I hollered, and hopping, placing the new blocks to meet her. There we go, she chirped, standing next to the glowing cubes. You harvest, I'll keep watch. As Summer, bow in hand, turned to scour our surroundings, I turned my pickaxe on a dozen or so blocks of glowstone. The first ones shattered with the sound of breaking glass as 3 yellow pinches jumped into my back. Don't worry if some fall, said Summer to my back. We'll get them on the way down. Got it, I said, as another tri-stack of powder fell beyond my grasp. And you might want to place some netherrack around the bottom of the deposit, she continued. That way, you can mine from a different angle. That eerie chittering again, drawing closer. Don't stop, snapped Summer, who must have instinctively known that I was going to turn. I'll be here any second. Way, woo, woo. Closer now. Louder. Summer's faster scared me back to furious picking. Another block, shattered into powder. Then another. How many more to go? A bird-like chirp. The rolling R's seemed almost gleeful, and anticipation rose to a piercing shriek. I couldn't help but turn, just in time to see Summer, bow swapped for sword, swinging at something, approaching, a fireball, an actual burning missile, which she batted away, like she was hitting a home run. Just hit a 6, she huffed cryptically, and then, switching back to a bow, she caught me looking at her, and roared, Pick! I did, spinning to assail the few remaining blocks. Wheezing wails rang in my ears, punctuated by the whip of Summer's arrows. She must have missed, because I thought I heard her grunt something angry, like, Muddy Bell, Another wheezing, breh, rising to a shrieking, breh, and the sound, popping flames, grew in my ears. It must have been that distraction, coupled with my already frayed nerves, that caused my next, nearly fatal mistake. Hearing the thonk of Summer's sword batting, I picked out the last of the glowstone blocks, then kept going for just the barest of moments before my brain commanded my hand to stop. Too far! The crunchy, delicate netherrack behind it fell away, revealing an orange, indesicent wall. Lava! I could have just blocked it up, and I would have if my brain had been working. Panic drowned thought. Run! I spun, bashing into Summer, shoving her frantically down the stairs. What the blow? She started to say, then looked past me and took flight. The uncanny cry sounded again, just to my right. The ghast! A giant, pale head atop stubby, dangling tentacles. Black, slitted eyes opening to round, red holes. Brrrr. The red, open mouth. A missile launcher, ready to rain down fire. Jump! Summer leapt off the staircase. I should have. The mind reeling, feet fixed. I stood there, just stupidly, and raised my quivering shield. Boom! Blown off the staircase, coughing and flying through the air, landing on cracked ankles beside Summer. I took a moment to breathe, get my bearings, figure out my next move. What are you doing? Another blow, this time from her, punching me on the back, driving me into action. The lava! I had totally forgotten. Another second, and I would have been doused in death. Across the pit, Summer cried, jumping in and out of a slight depression ahead of us. Brrrr. The blast hit me, square in the back, burning through armor, hammering bones, throwing me into the depression of now burning netherrack. Fire. Choking, gasping, blinking through flames. Guy! Called Summer, as an arrow whistled over my head. This way. Running to catch up, meeting her behind the pillar's bend. Drink! A shimmering bottle in my face. The salty taste of insta-health. Better? Better, I breathed, still amazed by how quickly these potions work. Thank you. Here, she said, handing me another night vision potion. The first gem's almost out, and we'll need to top off again before we attack. Attack? Suddenly, I didn't feel so good anymore. You want to kill the ghast? No. She turned to look me in the eye. You will. What how I will, I stammered, as another creepy call echoed from around the corner. You can do it, Guy. Summer's voice was confident, although I just detected a hint of annoyance, too. Just sneak up behind it for a kill shot while it draws its fire. But why? I yipped. Why mess with it at all? We got what we came for. Let's just get out of here. I didn't feel ashamed this time. I didn't see a point in fighting. Guy, Summer took a deep, calming breath. You need to know how to handle a ghast and everything else down here if we're going to be of any help. Another deep breath. I can't always be taking care of you. We have to be able to take care of each other. Understand? Why did she have to be right? Why did I need a new freshen right now? This wouldn't be our last ghast. And if I didn't learn how to deal with them now, I'd be nothing but a constant burden. She was right. Freshen 9. Friends take care of each other. Fine, I huffed, as another ghastly screech filled my ears. Just tell me what's gotta do. What I already told you, Summer counter-huffed. Just wait for me to get you out there and take the heat. When you see its back turn, draw your bow and pop the little blighter like a balloon. But what if it turns towards him? Summer was already gone, sword in hand, rushing out into the open with a fearless shout of, "Here I am!" Bleh! I poked my head around just in time to see the creature launch another fireball. Summer didn't try to bat it back. Instead, she just dodged, darting away as the bombshell detonated harmlessly at her side. Poor little gasbag, she laughed, then broke into a song about, of all these things, a running rabbit. Bleh. More fireballs, more near misses. Summer zigzagging in a semicircle to turn the ghast's face away from me. Run, rabbit, run, run. Her courage, her calm. I probably wasted half a minute just staring in awe before getting my head together. I stepped out into the open, drew my bow, and lined to size of my shot. Despite the creature's size and apparent slowness, it was a pretty slippery target. The way it rose and fell, drifted this way and that, made it difficult to track. Whoop! My first shot fell just beneath its tentacles. Aim higher, shouted Summer, dodging another impact. Shoot where it's gonna be. I loaded her voice into the second arrow, trying to anticipate my target's course. Whoop! Another miss. To the right, just as it floated left. You'll get it. Keep shooting, Summer's voice. Her conviction. She believed in me. I drew my bow again, held my breath, then gasped as a hideous, chalky blimp turned slowly in my direction. Black slitted eyes became red as a closed-line mouth rounded for a launch. Shoot! Whoop! Bleh. We fired our shots and dodged at the same time. It missed. I didn't. A faint pop, a crackling hiss. The ghast disappeared as something small, light, and faintly oval fell to the ground at Summer's feet. Ghast here, she said, running towards me to show me the crystalline prize, the prime ingredient for a regeneration potion. A little different from insta-health, but I'll explain that later. Cool, I said, still trying to process what had just happened. You take it, she said, handing me the trophy. You deserve it. Then, punching me lightly on the shoulder, she announced, Guy, you killed your first ghast. Yeah, I answered, nodding my head with the realization. I did, didn't I? A hug might have been in order, but a fist bump would do for now. I knew you could. Her voice made me feel 10 blocks tall. So, what do we do now? I asked, ready for anything this new broiling realm could throw at me. Back to the mountain, said Summer, turning for the quartz path. I think we've had quite enough victories for one day. Really? I couldn't believe how disappointed I felt. We can't keep going? We need to rest, warned Summer, and celebrate. We just proved we can take care of each other, which means we're stronger together. We're a team now, Guy. I guess we are, I nodded, feeling like I'd drunk a potion of levitation. Summer had touched on another fashion. Friends are stronger together. And that one set off a whole mental chain reaction. Why do we need friends? Not just for company, but for actual needs as well. Right? I'm sure. But when we were huddling in the prehistoric trees, we weren't just saying, hey dude, you're really cool, we should totally hang out. It was probably more like, dude, if we're gonna eat tonight, you watch for lions while I pick up some berries. Maybe the actual language was different. Probably a lot more like, ooh, ooh, ah, ah. But you get where I'm going. Friendship is a survival skill. In that time or ours. Minecraft, the Mountain. Chapter 12. Remember, back on the island, when I talked about my first Rika routine? Well, if you don't, it was the first time my random adventures had finally settled down into a predictable pattern. That's what happened here. Only, instead of a week, it was a whole month. You know how, when you're watching a movie, and they compress time into quick shots that last a few seconds? What do they call that? A montage? Picture that. Me getting up every morning, meeting Summer for breakfast, then loading up on arrows and potions before heading down into the nether for more glowstone. We always headed in one direction, down the quartz-marked path to the intersection, then a sharp turn to the land of low-hanging fruit. Glowstone was everywhere, bunched up in luminescent clusters. Sometimes we just built a ramp. Sometimes we just climbed a natural slope. Sometimes one of us would build a jump tower, placing in and jumping while stacking netherrack beneath us, while the other one kept watch for ghasts. And there were plenty of ghasts. I think, looking back, I must have bagged at least 10 of them in all, mostly without any trouble, sometimes completely on my own. I got pretty good at getting the drop of them, listening for the approaching chirp, sweeping the pink mist with a drawn bow. And when it came to hitting the target, I began to master the fine art of long-range ballistics. It's not easy, at first, to predict where the floating, bombing bombers are headed. But after enough practice, I really did get the hang of it. I also got the hang of what it was like to live with someone else. Summer might have still refused to admit that we were friends, but our partnership sure did fit the bill. We adventured together, ate together, swam in the ridiculous Arctic River together. I didn't complain too much. I didn't want to upset her, like when I occasionally brought up what we do, or where do we go after leaving the mountain. Those times always earned me a terse, can we just focus on the here and now? I figured she was just being practical, so I kept her downtime conversation to stories about my life on the island. I know I talk too much, as you've probably figured out by now. I tried to keep my stories short and funny. I loved to hear her laugh. I never could have guessed how important something like that was for survival. Comfort, strength. I hadn't been this happy since the first quiet week on the island. And the happier I got, the less I thought about moving on. I can admit that to myself, and to you now. I wasn't really aware of it at the time. I hadn't intended it to be that way. In the beginning, everything we did, every new skill I perfected, got filed into the book in my brain, labeled Helpful Hints for the Journey Ahead. That book was always in my thoughts, along with the dreams of what was waiting out there, the other taiga beyond the forest, and the jungle beyond that, and then the great unknown, new lands, new possibilities, and hopefully, as always, the chance of a way back home. But as time went on, and each reassuringly routine day rolled into the next, that book got smaller and smaller. It might have disappeared altogether if what happened at the end of the otherwise monotonous month hadn't occurred. Present time. We just come back from a particularly lucrative haul. We've gathered enough glowstone to finish lamps for the workshop. We'd worked all day and through the night, according to Summer, whose internal clock was way better than mine. And so, when we got back to the next morning, both of us were craving sleep. Too bad the world won't let us turn in before nightfall, said Summer, dumping her glowstone in a workshop chest. But I know the perfect way to perk up. Oh, come on, I moaned as she took off running for the front door. Come on. I knew where she was going, and I was definitely not in the mood. I'd gotten reasonably used to the heat down in the nether, the constant thirst, feeling like I was slow cooking under my armor. I'd even got used to both the bad smells, rotting, bacony zombie pigs, and well, the other constant stink of you know what. So I really didn't see the use of an ice-cold river plunge, and Summer knew my feelings well. Oh, don't be a baby, she taunted as a click of the lava switch filled the entrance hall. You know you'll love it. She knew I didn't, leaping through the freezing air into even more freezing water. If I hadn't been so tired, I would have just watched from the bank, but I went along with her, and the chill didn't invigorate me. I was about to get back out for a hot shower when I felt something wriggle past my leg. I yipped, splashing out of the way. I expected to see a squid. They were rare, but not unknown in the river. Instead, I caught sight of what could only be a fish. Pardon? Summer has ceased her splashing, just long enough to hear me. What are you on about? Look, I pointed to the small, swimming life form. Look, a fish. Several, she corrected. There were at least 3 more, all swimming ahead of the one that brushed me. They seemed reddish, despite the blue of the water, and roughly the shape and size of salmon I used to catch. Are there fish here? I asked, wondering if I had somehow missed them during all our other swims. Never. Summer had that flat, emotionless tone I recognized as her thinking voice. Never here. Her eyes followed them under the ice. I've never seen one anywhere unless it was at the end of a hook. Me neither, I added. Until this morning, I'd only seen squid below the surface. Fish had always been invisible until I caught them with a pole. Now, here they were, along with something else. Whoa, check out the plants! My fist shot to the wavy green clumps growing along the river bottom. These were definitely not here before. Summer didn't reply, but bent down to try to scoop up a disintegrating handful. In contrast to her even keel, I was positively beaming with excitement. The world, I exclaimed, realizing the bigger picture. The world's gone through another change. Who knows when it had happened? Probably sometime while we were in the nether. It'd been about 2 weeks since we ventured outside the mountain, and in that time, for reasons we still couldn't understand, the world outside has spontaneously and miraculously transformed. Now, if you've been in this world long enough to witness one of these changes, you know what I'm talking about. If not, try not to freak out, just like I did that first time, waking up and discovering that my left hand felt all tingly. Up until that point, I couldn't really use my left hand for other than as an assistant to my right. After that moment, though, it could hold stuff independently, which was great. But that was just the start of the change. On the downside, mobs were harder to kill, but on the upside, I could now craft a shield to even the odds. I experienced another change later on, my boat suddenly appearing with oars, when previously I had to lean forward to make it go. But that first change had been the most dramatic, and with it, I learned a valuable lesson. When the world changes, you've got to change with it. I can't stress how important that lesson was, and I think a lot of people have trouble with it back home. Maybe I'm wrong, but I could vaguely remember our world always changing. New machines, new ways of doing stuff, new ideas, and how that change had really scared and angered a lot of people. Maybe they were worried about being left behind. Maybe they were just frustrated at having to relearn skills they thought they'd mastered. But this sure had been the case in this world for me. But I did learn, and as an added bonus, change taught me that I could adapt. I shouldn't be afraid of it. When the world changes, you've got to keep with it, because the world's gonna keep changing whether you want it or not. That's what was going through my mind now, taking in the fish and river grass. What else changed, do you think? I asked, jumping out of the river and running up the bank. I couldn't see any difference. No new animals or plants. Nothing but the same frosty nothingness. Do you think it's just the water? I asked. All the water? Should we hike to the coast? Check the ocean? If the oceans had changed, what else could be out there? What would that mean for my island? There's gotta be more on land, I mused, willing myself to see beyond the snow. All that other land you told me about. All the places we're going to explore. We gotta get going. We gotta see. We will, sighed Summer, holding up 2 pacifying arms. After we finished lighting the mountain. What? But, I fumbled through sleep-derived adrenaline. We've, already done so much. We've lit the kitchen, the chicken coops, my apartment, flat. Summer tried to correct. The proper term is flat. Whatever, I bulldozed. Point is, we've got to get enough for all of those. And the workshop, or maybe, a couple storage closets. But not the main chamber. But that'll take forever. But you promised. I had. And although Summer's words felt as cold as the river, I couldn't deny that friends kept their promises. You're right, I sighed, and looked up to the horizon. Guy. Summer's voice was softer now, warmer. I know you want to pull up stakes this instant. I do, too. But it just wouldn't feel right not to finish what we started. And besides, a tinge of verve in her voice, you hadn't seen the ice cube. Ice cube? I turned back, suddenly remembering the signpost. Our first date, down below. When I'd asked about it, she hadn't answered then, and we hadn't talked about it since. One thing at a time. Low-hanging fruit first. I think you're up for it now, said Summer confidently. Exploring another fortress. There were fortresses in the Nether? I'd clean out a few of them, Summer continued, and they're nowhere as easy as picking glowstone in the wild. Summer got out of the river, walked down the bank, and pickaxe in hand, began chipping away at the ice above the fish. There's still one I hadn't explored yet, and now I think you're ready to come with me. She paused over the open water, switching out her pickaxe for a regular axe. Tomorrow, we'll head out to the ice cube. She chopped. I turned away, focusing on what she had in store for tomorrow. A fortress, the ice cube. Clearly, there were more nether adventures I have before I could even think about moving on. That night, after dinner and our standard pre-adventure prep, I did something I hadn't done in a very long time. I thought about the paintings on the wall. I hadn't paid much attention to them in a while, even at first, when I'd been too overwhelmed by this whole new situation. That's why I'd given them only a passing mention in the earlier chapter, although their significance was practically shouting at me that night. They were the same ones from my house: the creeper, the man standing on the mountaintop, and the skinny, angular video game character of King Graham from the video game King's Quest. How was this possible? How could Summer and I have come up with the exact same images? Was this world choosing images for the canvas? Or were they buried memories? I bounced between both ideas, and I still wasn't any closer to either. If the pictures did come from the back of our minds, then it would mean Summer and I had lived pretty similar lives. That would explain the creeper, duh, but also the mountain man and King Graham. Could we have both seen them back in our world? And if that was the case, was it more than just a coincidence? The painting of King Graham seemed to take up most of my attention that night, and I'm not sure how long I stared at it before going to sleep. Why a computer game? And why such a simple one at that? It kinda had a breakthrough back on my island, when I'd remember that somehow computers were important to me. Maybe for a job, or for leisure. I couldn't be sure, but I knew they mattered a lot, and if Summer's mind had conjured the exact same image, maybe they mattered to her as well. So many mysteries, I said, staring at Graham. So many more questions to answer. End of chapter 12. Minecraft the Mountain. Chapter 13. One of those questions, a big one, was repeated in the dream I had that night. I hadn't dreamed in a while, or at least I hadn't remembered them. Isn't that the case with dreams? You have them every night, but don't remember most of them? I did with this one. Parts of it, anyways. The images were hazy, colorless. I was seated at a screen, tapping away frantically, and, I think, gliding another device across a flat surface. Was I working? Playing a game? Both? I woke up even more anxious, even more curious than when I went to bed. One question was rising above the others, and that one connected to both the dream and King Graham. Where do you think we are? I asked Summer, a few minutes into her trek. We were back in the Nether, heading in the opposite direction for our hunt for the small collection of glowstone. We were following the quartz-marked trail, on the watch for ghasts, heading to the fortress called the Ice Cube. Eh? Summer didn't seem very interested. Her mind was, as usual, focused on what was in front of us. Where do you think we are? I continued, speaking to her back. This world, I mean. Do you think it's another planet? Another dimension? Oh, that's easy, Summer replied, as easily as if I asked her how to craft a wooden shovel. We're in a video game. I couldn't believe my ears. You think? Of course, Summer shrugged. Haven't you had the dream? The words hit me like an invisible hammer. Which one? She chuckled. The screen typing, computer one, of course. Oh my God, yes, I hopped next to her, bouncing with excitement. Just last night. That's why I'm asking you now. I think I had the dream after looking at your paintings. Our paintings. Because I have some of the same ones back on my island. All the more reason for it to be a game. Summer's voice hinted at boredom. How else could we have come up with the same pictures? I would explain anything else. The look of this landscape, up there and down here, and the physics of the world. Doesn't it feel like a video game to you? Definitely, I started to answer, but with just a tad little enthusiasm. Something was knocking at the wall between the back and front of my mind. But that's just a feeling. It has to be. Summer's tone was practical, inarguable. Somehow we were pulled here, against our will. Like that dude, as you say in the old movie, you're always talking about where they fight with glowing frisbees. I muttered, remembering the movie but forgetting the title. Or, Summer expanded, we might have volunteered. Game testers, or designers. That could be us. We found some way to wipe our memories when we, plugged our heads right into the system. Can we do that? I asked. Plug our heads into a computer? No idea, sang Summer. But if you can remember every piece of technology from the other world, do tell. I couldn't. And I couldn't argue that the idea was sound. Game designers, or testers, or both. It did fit of our mutual dream. We were both sitting on some kind of laboratory beds back home, next to each other, or on opposite sides of the world. Computers wired into helmets, or, as Summer thought, directly into our heads. Ouch. The logic was sound, no doubt. But, I said, still wondering, could the answer be something else? Like what? Summer challenged. Well, I hesitated, unsure of my own gut. I thought about just agreeing with her and letting it go. We had a big day in front of us, and was an argument the best way to start it? But friends aren't afraid to be honest with friends. What if it's a world, a real world, that's just made to look like a video game for us? Back home, around human Summer might have cocked her head. How do you mean? I've just been thinking, I began. I've thought about this a lot. What if this world was created for us, for people like us, to, learn stuff? Learn about ourselves, learn how to survive back in our world. Why on earth would someone go and do that? Summer balked. And why on earth would it just look like a video game if it isn't one? Simplicity, I offered. The basic nature of it. Less of everything from plants to animals, or even the type of ground below us. Or, I continued, glancing up, above us on the surface. Not that much to figure out, when you think about it, which gives us more time to think about ourselves. But why the video game look? Countered Summer. The whole blockiness of everything. Why make it look and feel like we're in a video game, instead of creating just a simulation of our world with, as you say, less of everything? I thought about that too, I continued, which got us sarcastic. Now that's a surprise in return. No, hear me out, I said, with growing confidence. Did you play video games back home? Definitely. A lot? Definitely. Me too. In fact, I think it's kind of like a common language back home, like eating, or music, or maybe sports. I couldn't remember if I ever played sports, but that didn't matter right now. What if whoever designed this world did it in a way that we, castaways, like you and me, can recreate later in our world? Again. Summer stretched the word. Why, in either world, would someone want to do that? As a teaching tool, I breathed, really getting into the swing of my thoughts. A life lesson teaching tool wrapped up in a fun game. Summer was silent for a moment, no doubt accepting the mind-blowing power of my insight. It made so much sense. It couldn't be anything else. A world created to teach us how to be a better version of ourselves, which we could then recreate on computers for everyone else to play. How simple. How perfect. In the few seconds it took Summer to answer, I pictured myself as one of those historical figures from long ago. You know, the kind wrapped in a sheet sitting on a rock, while the other sheet-clad dudes sat at his feet saying, "Ah, you're a genius, please tell us more." "No," Summer responded flatly. "You're wrong. It's a video game. You don't know that. It has to be. But you don't know. Neither do you." "But I will," I declared, wishing I could shake my finger in the air. When we leave this world for hours, I'll be able to prove that I'm right." "And until that day," Summer chimed back, "we both have to just respect each other's beliefs." "Respect each other's beliefs," I repeated, mentally checking off another friendship lesson. But that freshen suddenly took a backseat to my shout of, "Whoa!" I stopped in my tracks, forcing a huffing halt from Summer. "What now?" "Do you know what you just said?" I asked. "Something that won't delay our mission, I hope," Summer quipped. "You know," I grasped for the thought, as elusive as an attacking gas. "I think you just summed up a really important lesson about a world." "Here it comes," Summer sighed. "No, really," I waved my arms. "I think what you just said about respecting each other's beliefs, a belief you can't prove until one crossed from one world to the next. I think," I exhaled deeply, "folks back home don't do that, or don't do it enough. In fact, I think some believe what they're believing so violently that they're actually willing to kill each other over it." "You really think so?" Summer said. "You think people at home are that mad?" "I'm not sure," I said, head swimming with ideas, "but I think I remember something like that from back home. Don't you?" "I try not to think too much about back home," Summer shrugged, which should have prompted entirely new and really critical conversation. Summer tried not to think about back home? Why? That's what I should have asked next, if I hadn't been caught up in high-minded notions about beliefs. "I think," I continued. "You certainly do," sniped Summer, turning to continue our hike. "And when we get back to our mountain, you can think and ponder and philosophize all your She stopped, words and motion. She was a couple dozen steps ahead, frozen at the top of a small rise. Fup. The sound answered my unasked question. It was coming from beyond her, somewhere on the other side. Fup, fup, fup. A mushy, squishy sound, getting closer by the second. I rushed up next to Summer, scanning the rusty, uniform landscape before us. There, Summer pointed to a distant cube that appeared larger and darker than the rest, and crooked. Crooked? I was about to ask when I looked at when the crooked cube moved. Not far, not fast, just a short, shallow hop in our direction. And on the second hop, I could make out what looked like eyes. "Magma cube," said Summer, the Nether's version of a slime. Slime? I might have skimmed over a passage about slime in my Allen's Monster Manual, but if they were a real threat, I'm sure I would have read deeper. And as if to complement that thought, Summer continued, "Not very dangerous, not like gas, but this one is in our way." "I'll handle it," I boast, reaching for my sword. She might dismiss my philosophical revelations, but she couldn't dispute my war skills. "If you wish," said Summer, even though it might be safer with a bow. "You're worried about safety?" I snorted, "with that bopping bag of jelly?" "Oh, by all means," Summer giggled, "save the day." I hesitated. "What's the matter?" "No, nothing." Summer stifled another giggle. Unless you like a little help? Please, I sneered. I got this. Can't be too dangerous, I thought, striding purposefully across the crunchy speckled ground. I mean, if I can take a guess, what can this dopey hop rock do? The hop rock must have seen me coming, because its next bounce brought those eye levels with mine. Come on then, I said, trying to imitate Summer's accent. Give it a go. I stepped forward to swing right as the magma cube bounced right on top of me. Ow, I yelled, reeling from the burning impact. Honestly, it wasn't too bad. No different than a zombie's punch. But the blow to my pride, especially when I knew I had an audience, and was enough to send my sword to work. Ha! I yelled as a diamond blade sliced through living lava. The cube flashed red, falling back in silent pain. Rushing forward for a second, hopefully fatal blow, I shouted over my shoulder. No problem. The blade connected, but the creature didn't die. Instead, it split into 4. No fooling, 4 smaller versions of itself. No problem, called Summer as a hopping quartet attacked. I squealed, getting knocked and burned by the cubes as I swiped wildly around with my sword. You got this? Asked Summer with a slightly more serious tone. I got this, I insisted, as the blade swished a sweeping slice against all 4 cubes. I began, but bit down on time. They split again, 4 into 8. Hop, bounce, burn, surrounding me, pouncing. Out, come on. A well-placed chop turned 1 into smoke. At least they stopped dividing at this level. 2 more at my back, another 3 on either side, leaping at my face, searing through my armor. I got this, I kept repeating to myself through swipes and singes. I got this. Bouncing and burning. So many, too many. What was that movie I seen once? That phrase that had been funny then? I got it. I ain't got it. Summer, I need help, said the calm voice behind me. I figured you would. Another blade at my side, dicing the living dice. You go right, I go left. The feeling of Summer's shoulder against mine. Comforting, secure. A minute or so later, we were standing in silence with a few red and yellow balls hovering at our feet. Magma cream, said Summer, swiping out the first of 2. The prime ingredient for fireproof potions. You know, Summer, I said, as hyper-healing fixed anything but my pride. I wasn't calling you 'cause I needed help or anything. I just thought, you shouldn't be missing out all the fun. Of course, Summer handed me a ball of magma cream. And just so you know, in the future, there's nothing wrong with asking for help. Freshen 15. Friends shouldn't be afraid to ask friends for help. Onward then. Summer led us back into the quartz trail, down into a narrow, flat ditch. Here we had limited visibility. I noticed Summer swinging her bow back and forth. We should probably fill this in tomorrow, she said, looking up and listening for gasps. It'll make the final stretch to the ice cube easier to see. Why do you call it the ice cube? I asked. Is it its colors? And the mod cons, Summer answered, which you will definitely thank me for building. You built it? I asked, now thoroughly confused. I thought it was a fortress we were going to explore. Dear me, no, Summer chuckled. That's my forward base, and so to speak, my home away from home. A place to restock, catch your breath in safety, and above all, cool down. Say what? I couldn't have heard that right. You mean emotionally cool down, not physically change your temperature? Not at all, said Summer, as the terrain began to rise. I couldn't manage those deep-range missions if I didn't have a place to cool down. Overheating saps too much strength. Clouds thinking. I've made too many mistakes down here, lots of them life-threatening, to not appreciate the importance of beating the heat. I get what you're saying, but how did you... With that, as we crested the ridge, Summer gestured ahead. Behold the ice cube. End of Chapter 13. Minecraft, the Mountain. Chapter 14. A large structure, stark white against a bruised plum backdrop. It couldn't have been more alien or beautiful to my dry, blinking eyes. The ice cube? I asked. Summer nodded and started towards the aptly named box. Quartz was my next question, which got me another nod. Easy to spot, even without night vision. And, on cue, our potions faded, and our eyes returned to normal. Even in the haze, it shone as clearly as a lighthouse in ocean fog. As we continued across the crunching heat, Summer explained, "It took quite a bit of time, I can tell you. And while it's not exactly gas-proof, the outer wall is easy enough to repair." Outer wall? Mentally, I braced for what had to be another eye-popping tour. I could already spot Summer's signature retractable gravel slits. And as we approached the wooden front door, she explained, I would have preferred iron, but the open holes would let all the cool air escape. Cool air. I shook my head. Why am I surprised that I'm surprised? Summer laughed, opened the door, and ushered me into a dark vestibule, then reached up to switch on the redstone lamps above us. Oh, I moaned, embraced by a welcome wash of Arctic air. Whoa, boy. Summer chuckled again, motioning all around us. 3 walls, quartz outside and quartz inside, with packed snow in the middle. You brought snow from up top. I leaned my face against a chilled quartz wall. It doesn't melt, said Summer, even when exposed to the air. I saw her looking up and did the same. Checkerboarded amidst the redstone lamps were iron grates, and behind their bars, cubes of frozen flaked water. Simple thermodynamics, chirped Summer. Hot air rises, cool air descends. Oh yeah, I gave an exaggerated nod. Simple, you just invented air conditioning. I motioned to the next door. And through there is, what, the cardboard jet fighter that looks like a bat? Summer laughed so hard she bumped her shoulder against mine. Oh, guy. No, there wasn't a superhero lair beyond this temperature-controlled airlock, but the main room did have supply chests, raised beds of potatoes, and a jukebox playing one of those weird musical discs I have yet to acquire a taste for. Still, I couldn't help but marvel at all the time and effort that's gone into this home away from home. What's that? I asked, pointing to what looked like a 4-legged iron box full of water in the corner. A cauldron, answered Summer, filling 3 of her empty bottles with the little cube. Only way to store water in the nether. For some reason, it instantly evaporates, even in here, if you pour it into the ground. So, water doesn't make water down here? I mused as Summer handed me a drink. A bit of an inconvenience, she replied, refilling the cauldron with a full bucket from her pack. All this BYOW nonsense. Still, she gestured to her luxurious surroundings. I think it's worth it, don't you? My mind was already spinning after I finished chugging the throat-quenching bottle. But then, because my head was tilted towards the ceiling, I saw something that instantly re-dried my throat. Summer, I hesitated, scrounging for diplomatic words. I count almost 100 redstone lamps. I mean, minus the 8 spaces you've got for AC vents. I let my words trail off, not sure exactly how to finish the thought. Yes, Summer asked, with the slightest edge to her voice. And your point is? I didn't even know why I was so nervous. I mean, it was just an honest question. Well, wouldn't it be easier to just use these lamps and the ones in the vestibule and all the glowstone we've harvested to finish lighting the mountain? A pause, so slight it probably lasted less than half a second. But to me, that was tense waiting. Where's a good gas attack when you need one? Oh yes, Summer replied coolly. I can see how you think that way. I did too, when I considered building this place. She nodded empathetically, then downed her bottle of water. But this is just a fraction of what we'll eventually need. And maybe this was my imagination, but I could almost feel her voice relaxing with each word. Yes, we'll be taking it with us when we finally pack it all in. But until then, we'll need this place to rest and cool down. Especially, she said, her voice picking up in excitement, as she sauntered over to the lever next to the far wall. When her next stop is this. The gravel dropped before the glass windows. Dang, I was staring out across another ocean of lava, topped by something straight out of a fantasy adventure novel. A black fortress, rising out of the molten rock. Thick, sinister towers, connected by narrow ridges that made my head swim. I haven't explored this one yet, she admitted. But if it's anything like the other two I've cleaned out, then those nasty halls are crawling with truly nasty brutes. Blazes and wither skeletons that make surface mobs look like harmless snow bunnies. But once we get past to there, she gestured towards the far end of the fortress, to all the glowstone deposits hanging just above it, and with us working as a team, we'll have more than we need in no time at all. Her voice was so cheery, so optimistic. At that moment, I couldn't even remember why I brought up the ice cube's lamps in the first place. Trust me, Guy. Friends trust each other. I do. After a quick fist bump, and armed with more water and another dose of night vision, we exited the ice cube into the infernal body slam of heat. Never thought I'd identify it with the upper deck of a furnace, I mumbled. What was that? Summer asked, bow and eyes scanning the side. Nothing, I replied, not wanting to seem like a complainer. How are we going to get over there? I couldn't see any connection between our cliff and the fortress, which I guess makes sense for why I was there. I mean, if the whole point of a fortress is defense, what's more defensible than an ocean-sized moat of flames? Summer didn't seem bothered, though. This way. She pointed down the cliff's edge. I couldn't see what she was directing to me at first, confused by the feature obscuring netherrack. I leaned over to peer closer. Careful. Summer tried to dart in front of me. Mind the gap. I did. Not far, just a few blocks down into a staircase. It was dug right into the ground and angled in such a way that I totally missed it. I meant to do that, I said, looking up at her. Of course you did. Summer landed gracefully next to me, then stepped in front. Onward, Summer chirped and disappeared. We came out just at the shore of the lava, close enough to feel it bake every exposed patch of skin. You invent a fireproof boat? I half joked, backing up as far as I could. No need, Summer answered seriously, motioning down the beach to a strip of land, I think the word is isthmus, that connected to the closest tower. At first, I was relieved that it was both wide and at sea level, well, lava level. But when we got closer, I saw that the material was darker, browner, and finer than the ever-present netherrack. Soul sand, remarked Summer, which, trust me, you do not want to tread upon. Is it quick, I asked? You know, like the stuff back home that's supposed to swallow you whole? Quite the opposite, explained Summer, as we stepped right up onto the woolly-colored grains. It holds you in place, slows you down. A nonsense in the best of times. But in a battle... I got it, I nodded, staring closer at what appeared to be ominous faces in the sand. Maybe I was imagining that, though. I looked over at Summer and watched her remove stacked netherrack from her pack. Want me to keep an eye on the sky? You got it, she nodded, and I went to work, covering the soul sand. I kept watch, bow in hand, waiting for those creepy, floating squid balloons. It was tense going, eyes darting this way and that for anything that looked out of the ordinary, as if that word had any meaning anymore, and strained my ears for the nightmarish screaming. But the floating bombers never came, and in a few short, sweat-evaporating minutes, Summer had built a bridge all the way to the tower. Now, a diamond pickaxe glinted in her hand. We do what we do best, and we dug, taking turns cracking through a dark, tough substance that Summer identified as nether bricks. This phrase actually frazzled me more than crossing the isthmus, because, if you remember, we were tunneling blind through a pillar surrounded by lava. One mistake, one nether brick too many, and well, you can picture the results. I sure did. And when we finally broke into open air, I breathed a dry, lung-baking sigh of relief. About ready time, puffed Summer, leading me up until what have must been, once, an intersection. The roofless structure was composed of 4 connected doorways, 3 of which led nowhere. The 4th, however, opened into one of those connecting bridges as seen from the ice cube. I think the technical term is catwalk, which I guess comes from the idea that only a cat would be crazy enough to cross one. 3 blocks wide, that's all we had, with an extra 1 block raised guard on either side. No rail, no fence. And unlike a cat, no 9 lives. Someone was beside me now, bow ready. From here, we can get a good sense of where to start building our stairways to heaven. I didn't get the reference. I didn't have time to ask about it. You got your fireproof potion ready? Summer asked, scanning the pink mist. No, but, I started to say, then heard a new noise. It was a muffled, distant thup, thup, thup. And Summer shouted, "Look out!" before shoving me up into a protective corner between 2 doorways. "Drink your potion," she ordered as 3 fireballs streaked past us. These weren't gas missiles. They were smaller, faster. I watched them strike the nether bricks behind us with just enough force to set them alight. "Stay here," Summer commanded, and leapt to the safety of the opposite corner. "It's right out there." "What?" I squeaked, and peeked out from behind the barrier. It was smaller than a ghast, golden and smoking. A humanoid head perched atop rotating rods. It didn't seem to make any sound. That is, until it launched another tri-flame. That was the thup, thup, thup sound that had made me pull my head in like a turtle. "It's a blaze," said Summer. "They come from spawners in the fortress. And the longer we delay attacking, the more chance of its gathering more mates." "Let me draw its fire," I suggested, surprised at my courage. "We've got to have more experience hitting those things at a distance." "Good point," Summer agreed, knocking an arrow into her bow. "But for Pete's sake, be careful on that catwalk." I didn't know who Pete was, but I got the message loud and clear. "Here I am," I shouted, running out into the open. "Here's your target." Duff, duff, duff. 3 shots. Right behind me, close enough to burn my backside. Too slow, I shot back, turning to face it. Duff, duff, duff. Right at me, but slow enough to dodge. "Ha," I taunted, evading more incendiary rounds. "Gotta try harder." Whoop! Summer's arrow streaked from the tower's doorway, barely missing the bobbing blaze. "Almost had it," called Summer. "Keep it distracted." "No problem," I replied, realizing how helpful all those gas battles had been. Just like with anticipation where those sky squids would be, I'd mastered the art of calling their shots as well. Blaze strikes might have been a little bit faster, but the principle was still the same. It didn't take too much adjustment to dance out of their way. You heard me. Dance. My signature victory spin hop. "And you may find yourself in a giant subterranean oven," I sang, rewriting a barely remembered song that floated through my mind since my time on the island. Duff, duff, duff. Break left. "And you might find yourself in a fantasy fortress facing a goldy, floaty fire thing. Duff, duff, duff. Break right. And you might ask yourself, well, how did I get... Ah! Big mistake. I was so distracted with making up my song that I stepped on a burning square of nether brick. I observed that. Unlike netherrack, it's darker. Denser cousin only burned for a few seconds when lit. What I didn't take the time to confirm, however, was exactly how many seconds I had. A lesson from a time on the island leapt to the front of my mind. Details make the difference. "Yah!" I howled as flames rose up before my eyes. Pain. Panic. I ran for what I thought was the safety of the tower. "Stop!" cried Summer, halting my flaming feet. I was right on the edge of the guard. One more step and... Here! A voice to call me, guide me. "This way, guy." Following my crisping ears, I made it to the corner. Stay still. A few more eternal seconds before the torturous flames finally burned away. Vision clearing. Eyes regenerating. Summer yelling at me from the far corner. Didn't you take your fireproof potion? No matter. She raised her bow for another shot. Just pop a healer. The bottle in my belt, in my hands, and then the salty sting of instant health. Let me get back out there, I offered, ready to rejoin the fray. No need. Summer wasn't mad, just focused. I watched the arrow leave her bow, then peeked out just in time to see her foe drift away in a puff of smoke. Pity. Summer was looking down now, watching the remaining blaze rod fall slowly into the lava lake. Can always use one of those. She turned to me, adding, Still plenty more when we find the spawner. Let's go. End of chapter 14. Minecraft The Mountain by Max Brooks. Chapter 15. Summer's eyes swept the fortress. One of them has to be close. I nodded, trying to listen as my eyes followed the falling blaze rod. That could have been me. Just like with the magma cube, I'd allowed myself to get overconfident. Off we go, trumpeted Summer, trotting down the nether brick road. Trailing in her wake, I tried to keep track of all her threats. Gas, blazes, one wrong step over the guard. It was all I could do to keep focused, to not be distracted by the sheer complexity of this tower labyrinth before us. How had she done it? Conquered 2 of them all by herself. Just that the fact alone gave me the confidence to follow her every step. Duff. On the left. At her warning, I stopped short, as the 3 flares passed between us. Smoke, out of the corner of my eye. Duff. I sidestepped this time, breaking around my boat. Don't shoot. I paused in confusion, as Summer beat it for the intersection. We'll lose the blaze rod if we don't lead it over solid ground. I followed, then halted abruptly, as another volley crossed her path. Then we were off again, stopping at the intersection, turning to fight as a spinning hunter hovered up and into the catwalk. Summer shouted, Now! Her sword glinted in the gloom. No more wasting arrows. Are you... I don't know if the last word would have been kidding, serious, or crazy, but none of them had come out before she charged her enemy. Come on, guy, she called over her shoulder. We've got him. What a sight, even from my running, shaky vantage point. Summer the Slayer, with courage born of endless experience. She dodged and weaved, and then, when she was just underneath it, gave a high slicing leap. Her blade struck with a less than dramatic clink, and in 2 follow-up strokes, it was all over. I gave a whooping cheer for her performance. Thank you. Summer emerged from the dissipating smoke with a yellowish-orange stick. 1 blaze rod to go. That's what powers the brewing stand, I asked. And can be turned into blaze powder for strength potions, she answered, storing the rod in her pack. And there's plenty more where that came from. Summer motioned to another structure farther down the catwalk. Unlike the open doorway towers, this column was capped with an enclosed structure. I could see barred windows and a fenced-off roof. I could also see that the roof nearly scraped the cavern ceiling, and that something was flickering in the narrow open space. There's a spawner, Summer announced, and took off with me in tow. Don't spawn, I silently prayed as we ran in the opposite direction of safety. Please don't make any more of those. No such luck. But roughly 20 blocks ago, I saw the flaming little cage breathe a blaze to life. Faster, cried Summer, darting into the empty structure below it. It was some kind of garden, with 2 rows of soul sand sprouting large, red mushrooms, different from what is seen on the surface. I didn't have time to examine them, or even ask what they were. Our goal was a staircase that rose between the 2 plots, and the newly spawned blaze that waited at the top. This time, Summer didn't charge. She waited for a moment at the first step. I could see her eyes darting across the dark purple roof. Was she trying to locate our target by sound? I thought blazes were completely quiet, but soon realized that I hadn't been close enough to hear them breathe. It was a really creepy sound. Slow, labored, and slightly metallic, like someone trying to suck air through a pipe. Still just one, she noted calmly, eyes lowering to the stairs. And if it won't come to us, off again, bounding up the stairs with a cry of, "Keep up!" "Can't wait," I huffed sourly, bursting into the roof just as a rotating fiend turned toward us. "Duff, duff, duff!" Summer and I parted quickly, giving the fireballs a wide berth. "Quickly," she shouted, racing for the blaze, "before it gets away." I think she meant hover off the roof and get out of sword range. I personally wouldn't have minded it getting away, especially before another blaze puffed into existence. But I didn't argue or hesitate. The impact off my blaze sounded and felt like I was striking metal. I could feel the hard crack reverberate through my hand. A few short blows from both of us was all it took to give that blaze the blues. Okay, so maybe I still need to work on my wit, but you get it. We took it down so quickly and easily that I had more than enough time to turn my attention to the spawner. "No, wait," Summer's words caught my pickaxe mid-swing. "Don't destroy it." She held out a handful of netherrack. "Just seal it in. Hurry." Urgently, she began blocking up the narrow space between the roof's fence and the overhanging land. I followed suit, asking, what could we possibly gain by another tortured and Summer and me only halfway done. I turned to face a newly spawned blaze. "Summer, I know." Her blade had already fallen, making her the burner's target. I reached for my sword and accidentally pulled out my pickaxe, but saw that I didn't have time to switch. Summer leapt sideways as sparkling triplets hit the fence behind her. I struck hard and fast. Summer followed with a frontal assault. The blaze let out a final groaning gasp, then vanished into a smoking rod. "Finish the job." Summer swiped up the rod and ran back to seal up the spawner. I continued on my end, counting the seconds until another blaze showed. Luckily, by the time we heard the breath of a new living blowtorch, Summer was fixing the last netherrack block to the staircase. Right then, she gave a long, deep sigh, then preempted my question with, "I know what you're thinking. Isn't it dangerous to leave that monster maker up and running? But blaze rods are what powers brewing stands." I remained silent, so she followed up with, "So even when we leave the nether, we'll still be able to come here to get more of her potions." It made sense in the moment, but I'm sure if I had really thought about it, as I did much, much later, I might have wondered if it actually made more sense to just stock up enough obsidian to make portals to visit the nether for whatever we needed, when we needed it later, after we were on the move. I wasn't really thinking about it, and like my previous solo life on the island, when any time was good time for a mental puzzle break, I was still junior partner in a mission that was nowhere near over. So, with a trusting okay, I followed her back down the stairs and into the dark passage beyond. "Don't bother with the netherwort," she said, gesturing over to the garden. So that's what netherwort looks like. "I grow them up top. And besides," she hesitated at the hall's entrance, "too many other goodies stashed about." Just then, my night vision began to wink out. Summer?" "Me too," she answered, reaching for another bottle. "Time to top it off." I did, likewise, noticing my dwindling inventory. "One left after this. All we'll need," she declared, striding confidently into the corridor. "One glowstone harvest, and maybe a few bonus goodies, and we'll be on our way." She stopped at the first intersection, turning back the way we came. But first, I watched her take a crafting table from her belt, place it on the floor, then whip up a signpost marked "Home," just in case we lose our way. She really knows what she's doing, I thought. following her farther down the passageway and down another flight of stairs, I noticed that the barred windows here looked out into solid netherrack. And when I asked if we were underground, Summer explained that these parts of these fortresses were embedded in the surrounding land. Easier to get lost, she said, placing another signpost, but at least you don't have to worry about gas and blazes. Summer was a few steps ahead of me, by then turning right around the corner. I heard an exultant aha, and a second later saw the reason why. Farther down the hall, just before another turn, was a standard storage box that seemed as out of place as us. Fancy some treasure? She asked, and bounded forward with a light-hearted skip. Treasure, so that's what she meant by bonus goodies. And they were. Summer pulled out a handful of gold ingots, then a pair of sparkling diamonds. Whoa, I breathed, then asked, can you mine gold and diamonds down here? Not that I've found, answered Summer, which naturally got my mind working overtime on the big. Why? Why were they here? Already mined and processed and placed in these chests. Who did that? And for the matter, who built these fortresses to begin with? Like the mine under my island. Had they been constructed by long extinct civilization? What had happened to them? Were they turned into zombie pigmen? Ever seen these? Summer raised a coat of diamond armor in one hand, and what looked like a leather saddle in the other. I have, I said, recognizing as it belonging to an animal, at least the armor. I found that on my island. And I read about saddle in a guidebook. They're for horses, right? Or pigs. Have you ever seen a horse or a pig? Both, said Summer, pocketing the armor, and donkeys, and even oscillions. When I've been to the jungle. Have you ever ridden one? I asked. A horse, or even a pig? My mind filled with images of Summer galloping across the snow astride her trusty war swine. Not yet, she answered, still rummaging through the chest. Haven't got the chance. Well, there'll be plenty of chances, I said confidently, when we continue our journey. Summer didn't answer, but instead held up a sword of pure gold. Here, she handed me the shining blade. You should have this. Nice. Standing back, I gave the blade a few practice swipes. Thanks. It wasn't the sword itself. I could have made a dozen back on my island. But since gold is inferior to diamonds in both luster and strength, I kept the rare yellow metal for other things. It was the excitement of finding it, the idea that these dark meandering structures could hold pleasant surprises, that grabbed me. Summer must have sensed my enthusiasm. Enjoying yourself? You know it. Who knew this place could be so much fun? Click, click. Sounds, farther up the passageway. Click, click. Bones, skeletons. I could tag that sound in my sleep. But these were different somehow. Flatter, scraping, as if bones were being dragged across the hard brick floor. Wither skeletons, said Summer, closing the chest. Click, click. Bring him on. I reached for my diamond sword. Summer intoned, shaking her head violently. Trust me, you do not want to get close enough to be touched. Just then, a figure clacked around the corner. It looked like a skeleton, but it was black as newly mined coal, and instead of a bow, it carried a sword made from common grey stone. So that's a wither skeleton? I asked. In the non-flesh, Summer replied. Her bow was up, an arrow knocked to shoot. I'll do this one. She loosed a shaft into its midnight skull. The ebony frame flashed red, hopped back a step, then clacked towards us with stone sword ready. Your turn. I'd recommend keeping your distance, said Summer, stepping aside to let me shoot. But my bow wasn't ready. I was still armed only with my sword. Never mind, 2 more. Behind the first skeleton, Summer shot one of them again. Then shot it again, and a leg bone dropped and made a puff of smoke. I got it, I said. I'd used my sword, but now switched to my bow. I'd lined up the original skeleton and shot without fully drawing back the string. The result was a hit that probably didn't do too much damage, but the impact did knock it back. As I lined up to finish it off, Summer loosed 3 arrows quickly on the third skeleton. 5 arrows hit within 4 seconds, and all before our attackers could get anywhere near us. "That's it," I said, scooping up the 3 dropped femurs, or lemurs, whatever these medical terms for leg bones are. "That's easy." "Unless they touch you," said Summer, turning up the empty hall, "and give you a pinch of wither." "Can't be any worse than spider's poison," I snorted. "It is." Summer's voice was low, serious, and no doubt packed with memory. "Much worse." She didn't elaborate. I didn't press, especially when I saw her pick up her pace. There was another staircase in front of us, and something was glowing up at the top. Just like the Blaze spawner tower, this room was pressed right up against the netherrack ceiling, but instead of a smoldering monster factory, this roof was practically tiled with glowstone. "Jackpot," I cried, and turned to my nodding partner. There must have been at least 24 blocks, and between the two of us, we hacked and smashed and shattered it all within minutes. "So much," I said, gathering the last pinch of yellow dust, "and all in one place." "Quite," replied Summer, with just a tad less enthusiasm. "But the problem with glowstone is that you lose some dust every time you smash one." "Yeah, but you gotta admit," I countered, "that still is a heck of a haul." I yawned out the last word, which gave my partner a chance to chuckle. "You need a rest," she said sympathetically. "We both do." She started heading back down the stairs. "Let's get up to the surface, have a good night's sleep, and then come back right here tomorrow for another haul." "Now you're," a brief yawn, "talking." Following her signs, we trotted back down the corridor, past the blocked-up spawner, then down our tower staircase and across the covered soul sand isthmus. As we ascended the netherrack stairs through the cliff, the ethereal wail of a gas floated down. "Don't," warned Summer, motioning to my bow. "We're too hot and tired. Best to just pop into the ice cube for a bit, have a water, and cool down. And then, if it's still knocking out about, maybe we'll be in much better shape for combat." "Makes sense," I said, trying to stifle another yawn. And, as if were part of our conversation, the overhead gas gave another cry. "Breh." Summer downed a speed potion. No need to be stingy now. Then waited for me to do the same. With me barely a block behind her, we dashed up the remaining steps. There it was, the ice cube, in front of us, with a screeching gas behind. I heard the launch, felt the impact through my feet, the heat at my back. Just a few more steps. Breh. Too slow. No match for adrenaline and bottled speed. The door behind me, slamming shut. Cool, refreshing air. The second door. Bright light. Security. Summer lowered the gravel windows to observe our foiled attacker. It was hovering over the cliff, barely 10 yards from our window. But just like so many other mobs, it seemed to lose interest once we were behind glass. "Good call," I said, taking a long, quenching gulp of water. Summer mumbled as she downed her own drink. "Now you see the need for a forward base." "You think of," I mumbled, then yawned, "everything," as all my tension drained away. How long had it been since we'd slept? A night? Maybe 2? I'd forgotten what a real sleep deprivation could do to my body and my mind. I wasn't thinking straight, but that's no excuse for what happened next. "You know," I said, reaching into my pack, "who needs to head back up to the surface when we can just catch a few Z's right here?" The bed was in my hand, expanding to a spot on the floor. Summer raised her hands to stop me. Too late. I started to slide into the bed right as I heard her yell, "No!" End of chapter 15. Minecraft The Mountain by Max Brooks. Chapter 16. We've all seen this moment in movies, many times. Something is about to happen, something terrible, with someone trying, in slow motion to stop it. Heroes running towards their comrades to save them, or away from the flame of an exploding building. Everything slowed down, with tense, atmospheric music playing in the background, as you wait to see if they'll make it in time. I think it had been done so many times that now it was actually something to make fun of. I can recall seeing parodies, commercials, and cartoons, and even laughing out loud at some of them. But now it was happening to me, and I wasn't laughing. I got to the bed, while out of the corner of my eye, I could see Summer across the room, hyper-reaching to place something in front of me. A block. Netherrack. Just as I reached over it for the bed, the world flashed white. Blind. Deaf. The blast lifting me off my feet. Up and back, slamming hard into the rear wall. Choking. Stunned. Hyperhealing. Pain. I hit the floor, face down. I called for Summer. Coughed. Tried to blink through regenerating eyes, then felt something pushed into the thrashed wreck of my hand. A bottle! Stinging lips parted, opening my throat. The ache of fizzing liquid. Watermelon. Insta health. Summer, I croaked through mending vocal cords. Summer? Darkness became shapes, which sharpened into clarity. I could see again. There she was, not standing over me as I expected, but racing away, toward the wreckage. The ice cube. Ruined. At least, that's how I looked at first glance. As I rose, hacked, and blinked in more of my surroundings, I could see that only a corner was destroyed, and only the first 2 layers. One last wall remained, one thin barrier of quartz between us and the hovering gas. If that hadn't been the case, if we'd been open to its missiles while still recovering from the blast, Summer, I heaved, stumbling clumsily towards her. I'm so sorry. It's all right. Summer didn't turn to face me. I could see that she was frantically gathering up hovering blocks, shoving them into storage chests as quickly as she could swipe them off the floor. I also could see that a lot of the blocks weren't just wall debris. The exploding bed must have taken out one of her storage chests as well. Oh my god, Summer, I said, as the ringing in my ears subsided. I'm so sorry, I forgot about the exploding bed. It's all right, she repeated tersely. Just rest a bit. Don't move or speak. I didn't know what to say. I felt so horribly guilty. Instinctively, I wobbled closer to the wreckage. Here, I reached for a floating stack of snowballs. Let me help. No, snapped Summer, moving between me and the rubble. Leave it with me. Just rest for a bit. Rest. She didn't seem angry. Just, what's the word? Rushed? Nervous? And why shouldn't she have been? Don't dropped items in this world have a shelf life? Don't they vanish if you don't pick them up right away? All her precious building materials. All her meticulously stored items. I can help you, I said, trying to get past her to the mess. Seriously, let me help you. I don't need your help, she snapped, throwing something into a nearby chest. You need to take care of your wounds. But you're wounded too, I said, now double guilty that she almost died saving me. If you don't heal... She pushed in front of me as I spoke, grabbing another pile of something. I looked down to see that there were identical piles of that same something. A lot of piles. Bright. Yellow. Summer, I began, knowing the answer. What is that? Nothing, she responded, knowing the answer as well. Summer. Stomach tightening. Skin sweating in the cold air. That's glowstone. Not really. Her voice was high. Her words quick. Not much. So much. I didn't have to do the arithmetic to guess how much. Summer. Now my voice was deeper, more confident. That looks like more than enough to... No. She still wouldn't look at me, frantically scooping up the hovering truth. You don't understand. I didn't. I couldn't wrap my square brain around what was happening. All this time, all the glowstone harvesting we've been doing, it was already here, ready to go. Why? You really don't understand, Summer repeated, dumping the last pile into another chest. It's not enough, really. Can I look? I don't know where my words came from. Can I count? Don't get me wrong. I was just as terrified as I'd been with the chickens. Even more so. Because as scary as it was to reveal something to Summer, it was even scarier to have her reveal something to me. If that's not enough, can I count it for myself? No. Summer turned to face me, moving her body between me and the chest. You don't have to. I know what I'm talking about. Just trust me, alright? Trust me. But I didn't. And while I'd faced starvation, monsters, and countless new and frightening situations in this world, what I did next was by far my bravest moment. Are you lying to me? What? Summer gasped, stepping back, waving her arms. How can you ask that? The anger in her voice, the shock. The peacemaking side of me wanted to retreat, apologize, smooth everything over before there was no going back. And that's exactly what Summer was trying to do. I know that now, in hindsight. In fact, I think it's a pretty common tactic guilty people try. Accuse the accuser. Make them question their question. But I wouldn't. I couldn't. What kind of friendship is built on lies and secrets? How can someone be your friend if they don't know who they're really being friends with? So, instead of taking back my question, I added a second. Why are you lying to me? I didn't mean to sound angry, but the more I talked, the more anger I felt. We had an agreement. I trusted you. Why did you lie? That pause. The moment of 1,000 thoughts. I couldn't believe this was happening to me. I'd never imagined it was possible. I remember someone, maybe in a book I read once. They said they could face death. But not the only thing I was going through now. One word, new and horrible. Betrayal. Why, Summer? Again, to her silent, tortured face. Why did you lie to me? Because I don't want to go with you. Her shout had me staggering backward. I thought if you came with me, if you saw how much fun the Nether was, and aren't you, Guy? Her voice softened. Her pitch rose. Are you having fun? We could keep having fun if we just stayed here. You could build yourself your own house, as big and wonderful as you'd like. I'd help you. A mountain and your castle. Hot showers and redstone lamps, and I made sure you'd never have to see me eat meat around you ever again. I'd never seen her like this before. Pleading. Desperate. Summer. Shaking. Mouth dry. I have to keep going. But we have everything we could possibly want. Right here. Except the way home. Arms out. The point's so obvious. Why don't you want to go home? Summer's voice cracked, melting into teary sobs. Because I don't know who I am back home. What if I'm a loser with no friends? What if I don't know anything and can't do anything? What if I'm just a sad, lonely nobody back there? One square hand swept around the ice cube. Here, I'm somebody. I'm smart and strong and totally in control. I'm queen under the mountain here. And you want me to give that all up? And then it all made sense. All the little mysteries that had been nagging me since we'd met. That click I first heard when climbing her mountain. She'd seen me, but she didn't want to be seen. She didn't want anyone to discover her, to have this exact argument we were having right now. That's why she hid her windows with gravel and her front door with lava. That's why she'd let me move on before coming after me. But she had come after me. Part of her wanted to be discovered. I knew that feeling well enough. The inner conflict. The back and forth of knowing what you have to do even though it's scary and new. When you're trying to tell yourself something, listen. Summer. My voice was calm. Anger replaced with sympathy. I get it. I know how you feel. I was king of my island, and part of me didn't want to leave. I went back and forth a lot. I even made up projects to distract me, to procrastinate, just like us going after glowstone. But I learned that growth doesn't come from a comfort zone, but from, oh, enough. Summer waved her cute fist at me. Enough with your lessons and mantras and everything trying to teach me something. I'm sick of it. And you know what, guy? I'm getting bloody well sick of you. A punch in the gut. Invisible. Brutal. You don't mean that. I bloody well do. She stepped back, turned away. I've made my choice, guy. Now you need to make yours. To be alone again. My worst fear. But if I stayed, wouldn't I be giving up too much of me? All my hopes, my dreams, the whole reason for coming here in the first place. All gone, just so I'd have another person next to me every day. Being with her would mean giving too much up of me. It was simply too high of a price to pay. Freshen 16. Friendship shouldn't force you to give up you. Make your choice, Summer insisted, still not looking at me. I did. I sighed and turned for the door. Fine. She didn't move. Goodbye, Guy. Goodbye, Summer. I reached for the exit, but turned at the last minute. You're wrong, you know, about being a nobody with no friends back home. You're always somebody, and at least you would have always had at least one friend. I stepped out the door before she could respond, and ran all the way back, fueled by the last seconds of liquid haste. Part of that decision was to outrun any lurking guests, but part of it was also to outrun my waning resolve. It's one thing to make a choice, another to accept the consequences. Alone again, back out onto the cold, literally. Why do some right choices have to hurt so much? I sped back to the portal, phased back to the mountain, and walked slowly and sadly to the front door. But as the lava receded, I realized it was night outside. In fact, as soon as I could see out into the coral dark wastes, a couple of skeletons saw me. Wrong number, I yelped as 2 arrows whistled past my face. Closing the door and flicking the lava switch back on, I could hear their bones burning on the other side. Tomorrow, I thought, heading back for the guest room. Better to start first thing tomorrow. The bed, right there in front of me. If I just waited till we got home, what? Then we'd have kept going with her little, what do they call it? Charade. Back and forth. Gathering glowstone we didn't need, which would only have given Summer more time to make up lies. It would have to come out eventually. Sooner or later, I have been right here planning my exit. I bedded down for the night, curling up with sadness, anger, and thoughts I try not to think. Maybe staying here an extra night will give Summer enough time to come around. Yeah, that could happen. She could realize she was wrong, follow me back here, and wake me up to tell me that she's ready to come with me. But on the other side, don't cling to false hope. She's gone. It's over. Still, the next morning, I woke up expecting her to be there. Summer, I called, heading back to the main chamber. Summer, you here? I checked her bedroom, the kitchen, the workshop. I'd even headed down to the chicken coop. Nothing. And the lack of new chicks told me that she hadn't been back to harvest another meal. She probably came back last night and didn't wake me. That had to be it. She returned for her own night, for her own rest, and was still mad enough to ignore me. Well, two can play at that game, I thought in a huff, tramping out of the mountain into the bright, freezing taiga. I didn't even bother to restock my inventory. Food, arrows, potions, even extra crafting material like wood and metal. I didn't want to take anything from her, and I certainly wasn't going to wait around to argue that our time together has earned me the right to take my share of supplies. I can harvest what I need on my own. I don't need anything from her. I didn't even take any of the glowstone I'd helped her gather. She could keep them, for all I cared. A remainder of how she'd blown up this once-in-a-square world chance for friendship. And the netherrack? I still had some in my pack. That would be a souvenir. Their stink would always remind me of our far friendship. A friendship based on betrayal. I didn't stop to switch the lava back on. If she still wants to hide from the world, that's her problem. It felt good to be mad. The anger was like an engine that kept my eyes forward and my legs moving. If she's too stubborn to come after me, why should I waste another second waiting for her? That notion got me across the open snow, into the forest. But the moment I entered the trees, I could tell that something was different. First off, a whole new animal ran right past me. It was small and white, and had the basic outline of a wolf. I suspected it wasn't a wolf at all, but another member of the canine family. "You're a fox," I said to the retreating bushy tail, "aren't ya?" The animal didn't stop to answer, or even stop to look at me. It skittered over the nearest ridge with a high, huffing squeak. "Just don't try to hurt me," I called after it, "or any of those sheep, and you and I will get along fantastically, Mr. Fox." Strange, I didn't notice them before, I thought, continuing through the dark, tall trees. Maybe I just didn't spend enough time in these woods. Or maybe their white coat blended in with the patches of snow. Or maybe. My next theory formed with what greeted me over the ridge. Bushes, clumps of them about a block high, with what looked like little crimson berries growing on them. They certainly haven't been here before. I would have seen them. This was the exact path I'd taken last time, and that reddish-purple berries would have stood out sharply against the brown and greens of the forest. Had it come with the last world change? Like that last time when we discovered fish in the river? Probably. We hadn't done any exploring afterward. And who knows what else is out there now, I thought, stepping up to the nearest bush. And if this is a new source of food, yow, I jumped back, pricked by hidden thorns. "Got it," I told the bush. "Proceed with caution," which I did, gingerly reaching for the rogue prize. And hopefully thorns are your only defense. I wasn't thinking about poison, wondering if I'd soon be reliving my experience with raw chicken. "With great risk comes great rewards," I announced to the berry on its way to my mouth. I wouldn't say the reward was great, certainly not in the terms of any superpowers, or even filling my belly, but the taste. I popped down a few more sweet berries. I can't wait to tell. I stopped at the thought of her name. The sweet discovery now tasting very bitter. I'd forgotten, just for a moment. I guess she'll discover these on her own, I thought, harvesting a few more berries before shuffling sadly over the next ridge. Don't look back. Don't think twice. You've made your decision. Just keep going. Baa. "Hey, flock," I called, waving to the sheep I'd met earlier. "Good to see you're all okay." "Baa," they called back, munching peacefully, ignorant of everything I'd just gone through. I didn't want to feel a sadness that began creeping up from my heart. I didn't want to feel the loss. But seeing them together, remembering my own sheep back on the island. If there'd been a potion that cured emotion. At least we have each other, I sighed, then strode on toward the end of the wood. I could see the trees beginning to thin, the beginning of another white expanse. In a minute or so, I'd be in uncharted land. More ventures, more opportunities. Moo. There they were, 3 of them grazing among the last tall spruces. Cows. Moo. It was the nearest one, ambling slowly towards me. She was probably looking for another savory patch of grass. But when she randomly looked up at me, when our eyes met, moo. My best friend back on the island. My first friend, companion, teacher, foil. She'd always been there for me, even when she wasn't physically there. When I was trapped in the maze of mine shafts, just knowing that she was up there somewhere, waiting with a bucket of milk and a reassuring snort. It didn't matter how far away she was. Our friendship had canceled the distance. Friends keep you sane. Thanks, pal, I told the cow, feeling a sharp sting behind my nose. Thanks for setting me straight. Turning right around, I looked back toward the mountain. I gotta give her another chance, I told the cows. Friends shouldn't part in anger. Moo, they responded between munches. Exactly, I said. Just because we say goodbye doesn't mean we have to say goodbye to friendship. I mean, I've learned all those freshens about friends respecting one another. Why can't I just respect her? Her choice to stay. I'll go back, make up with her, and even help her finish lighting the mountain. Because I made a promise to her. And no matter what happens, friends keep their promises. And that's what we'll still be, even when I say goodbye. Parting as friends will mean I can carry her friendship wherever I go. Just like with Moo. Because friendship cancels distance, not the other way around. If we think about each other, we still care for one another. Then we can still keep each other sane. Moo, they applauded, and turned their black and white butts to me. Heading back for the mountain, I might as well have had another haste potion. Friends keep you sane, I hollered to the sheep, the igloo, the fish under the icy river. Even the bouncy, dopey bunnies who were probably terrified of me. Friends keep you sane. There was a mountain, just as I left it, with the lava fall still off. Had Summer not noticed? Or maybe she kept it off on purpose, hoping I returned to see it. A sign, an apology. Summer, I called, bursting through the double doors. Summer, it's okay. I don't want to end on a fight. I forgive you for what you said, and I hope you forgive me too. I skipped down the hall and into the main chamber. It's okay if you don't want to come with me. Friends respect each other's choices, right? Friends forgive. Summer, Summer. No answer. Again, I checked everywhere, calling her name, even double-checking rooms I've been through just a few minutes earlier. Nothing. Silence. Emptiness. Must be back down in the nether, I mused to the echoing walls. She must have come up and gotten her rest when I was sleeping in the guest room, and left before I was up, or maybe just now. By this time, I was back in the main chamber, nodding at what I thought might be a reasonable explanation. Maybe the change in the world allows you to sleep during the day. Maybe she came back just as I left, grabbed a power nap, and headed right back down. It was a possibility, just like her sleeping the night before. Either way, I was sure she was fine and safe and would probably be back here any minute. So why did I feel that something was very, very wrong? End of chapter 16. Minecraft the Mountain by Max Brooks. Chapter 17. She'll be back, I thought cheerfully, setting up my bed right at the entrance to the portal room. She had to be back soon. She had to sleep. And if, for some reason, she hadn't come back the night before, she'd be totally loopy by now. She'd need to come back tonight. But the next morning, when she didn't return, I started to worry. Yes, she might have still been angry, portaling back to the mountain, then creeping past me to her own bed. She might have even crept past me again, back to the portal, before I woke up. Possible, but likely? I didn't think so. That next morning, when I woke up to find the mountain still summerless, I knew something had to be wrong. Again, running from room to room. Again, calling her name. She was back in the Nether. She had to be. But why? Was she still angry with me? Was she trapped? Hurt? Nightmare scenarios floated before me. Images of Summer trying to come after me. Trying to apologize. But not realizing that there was a gas behind her. What if she was... I should have stopped. Taken a breath. And really thought about what needed to be done. And if I'd done that, this story might have ended up in a very different way. But I didn't. Panic drowns thought. Back into the portal. Through the purple swirl. Back to the heat. Stink. And near night. I gulped a night vision potion. Waited for the gloom to brighten. Then looked frantically all about for my partner. Lava, netherrack, and the occasional distant zombie pigman greeted me. The ice cube. She must be there. Resting. Hopefully, or maybe nursing some wounds. I ran across the narrow bridge, bounded across the netherrack plate. Heart pounding, panting in the heat. I followed the quartz path to the intersection, turned in the direction of the ice cube, and ran across a narrow cliff high above the lava. What the? Something caught my eye, slowing my step. Some things were out there in the molten sea. Little black dots. Too far away for me to make out. Dots that definitely hadn't been there before. Dots that were definitely moving. Creatures? Those magma cube monsters? Or was it something new? A change in the nether, just like in the world above? I flashed to the foxes. The sweet berries. Those might not have come along with the river fish. They might have just appeared with another brand new change. If that change came as recently as 2 nights ago, and if it also affected the nether, the snort turned me around, facing back the way I came. A zombie pigman was coming towards me, one of the many types I learned to ignore. But the sound. The sight. This one was different. No rotting skin. No exposed bones. This little pig boy or girl, or whatever, it was alive. Oh hi, I said in a reflex, hoping that maybe life also brought language. You haven't, by chance, seen a human kind of dressed like me, but with long hair and a funny accent? The piglet, stared up at me, snorted again, then punched me. Hard. In a place that if I'd been back in my world, would have been really, really painful. I yelped, more of annoyance than actual pain, then raised my sword. If this little brat was anything like the mini zombies up top, I'd be in for a serious fight. The small piglet came at me again, and this time met a sharp diamond greeting. Cree! It squealed, and then, surprisingly, fled like a bat out of the nether. Yeah, that's right, I nodded after it. You better run, you little... Crrrr. That was from its dad, who was bigger and armed with a golden sword. Now hold on, I said, with weapons ready. I don't want any trouble. It did. The shining yellow blade raised to strike. I blocked it with my shield, gave it a quick slash, then easily warded off another blow. Not so tough, I said, knocking it backwards with a second swipe. And you burn. As the adult pigette stumbled into a flaming square of netherrack, the flames leapt up its golden armor. Bringing home the bacon, I said with a final chop. I wouldn't have eaten any bacon, of course, but I did now have the firm conviction that this broiling underworld had indeed changed, and not for the better. Summer, down the trail, legs and mind racing. She must have run into these pigettes. Maybe they trapped her in the ice cube. I expected to see a whole horde of them besieging her base. I was already planning how I'd fight my way past them. Instead, as the ice cube came into view, I found myself more scared by the empty space. No mobs. No siege. Did that mean she wasn't home? Summer, throwing open the doors, feeling the chilled air on my face, and seeing an even chillier sight before me. Summer was gone, and from the look of things, she'd even spent some time cleaning up. The walls had been repaired, the storage chest replaced. But where was she now? A golden glint across the room, through the window. It was rising above the black fortress. Ablaze! That spawner was supposed to be blocked up. Had it gotten around, or though the barrier Summer I have built? Stepping closer to the window, I could see more of them, floating like vultures above the skyscraping maze. Summer had to be there. And now she was trapped by those blazes and pigettes and every other devil, old and new, that this world could throw at her. Just hang on, Summer, I yelled, racing back out into the heat. I'm on my way. The double doors flew open, and I flew back out into the dry, roasting air. Waiting for me was one of those big, fat, squishy magma cubes. Now, it leapt. I swung, and stood back as a whole family of smaller cubes landed before me. Not now, I roared with one sweeping slice that sent them reeling and separating. I promise I'll fight you later. I dodged around them and ran to the cliff stairs, down to the beach, across the isthmus to the fortress, then up through the spiral tower stairs to the empty nether brick hall. Summer! Running out into the catwalk, dodging the first volley of blaze flares. Seared, still running, reaching for my bow. Tuff, 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 past my ear, drawing back for a shot. The arrow whistled straight into its target. Ha! I cawed, downing a healing brew. And that's when my night vision conked out. No problem, I thought, and reached for another potion. There wasn't anything there. I hadn't brought any extra. Of anything. Back to the ice cube? Restock and return? No. That would have been the smart choice. But all I could think of was Summer. Alone. Scared. Hurt. Panic drowns thought. Summer! Where are you? Summer! I ran back into the hallway, into a total darkness I'd never experienced in the nether before. It hadn't been so bad with night vision, but now I was nearly blind. Torches. I reached into my backpack for wood and coal. Skeletons. Somewhere close. Nearly stuck coal to stick when the first one clacked around the corner. I could barely see it. Those black bones. A wither skeleton. Before I could reach for my sword or my shield, I felt it. A cut from a stone sword that shouldn't have been more than a minor wound. But the feeling. The drain. Muscles, bones, organs, like air stolen from lungs. It felt like my very life force was being pulled away. Aching, dazed, instantly exhausted, as if I was suddenly 100 years old. This was what Summer had tried to warn me against. This was Wither. Staggering back, turning to run, I panted out onto the catwalk. Bow in hand, I drew for a shaky shot. Missed. A second arrow. just as the wither effects wore off. Tick! Right in the skull. The impact punching my charcoal foe up into the catwalk guard. A third shot, knocking it over the side. Dizzy. Weak. I reached for another healing potion. Ow! Just like with night vision. And this time, I didn't have the luxury of choosing to return to the ice cube. 2 more wither skeletons came clattering onto the catwalk, bearing my way, forcing me to flee deeper into the fortress. Chomping down on the last of my bread, I jogged onto the next tower, down its open stairs into another nearly midnight chamber. Take 2 for torches. But I didn't have any. I dropped all my sticks and coal during the attack. They were still back there, hovering, about to disappear. I could hear the clacking wither skeletons above, and, through a grated window, the labored metal breath of an angry blaze. At least, it couldn't get me. Not in here. But the skeletons sounded closer every second. I had to block the entrance. But wait, what? My wood was gone, and I didn't have any cobblestone. And there wasn't any time to hack out the nether bricks around me. The netherrack. The blocks that I kept as souvenirs. I threw them up at the ceiling, just as the skeletons clacked overhead. In doing so, I realized I was solving 2 problems at once. Netherrack burns forever. Placing the first crinkly cube on the floor, I ignited it with a spark from my flint and steel. Light, I sighed, continuing to lay flaming netherrack down the hallway. At least I can see where I'm going, and if my flint and steel wears out, I can always gather more flint from the natural gravel. I even spied a gravel deposit from the hall windows, down on the beach, next to the isthmus. Iron was another matter. I had only 7 bars left. Not much good for anything else, I thought, trying to stay positive, because at this point, positively was one of the few resources I had left. At least I won't get lost, I thought, rounding another corner and placing another rack torch. Click, click. Up ahead, just around the next corner. Here we go again. I wasn't too worried. I had space to flee to, and even surplus netherrack to block up the hall. And when a traditional skeleton came clickety-clacketing into view, I actually let out a big thank you. Dunk! An arrow against my shield that sounded like "You're welcome" to my ears. Time to return the favor, I said, and reached out for my own projectile weapon. But as I drew back the bowstring, no arrow appeared in my grip. Out again? No wood, no coal, no potions, and now no arrows. Come on, fate, I whined, and marched dejectedly toward the bone-built sniper. Dunk! I deflected another harmless arrow as the skeleton wisely began to withdraw. Stand still, I demanded, slicing at empty air. Will you just let me kill you? For some reason, my fleshless foe didn't comply. Retreating, dodging, shooting. It led me farther and farther into darkness, down the hallway, past another intersection. Always be aware of your surroundings. But I didn't care. I was hot and tired and really annoyed that after I'd faced all these new threats, this run-of-the-mill twerp was wasting my valuable time. You know how's this gonna end, right? I thought I did, but clearly this world had other plans. Just as I managed to get close enough to land a strike, another sword jabbed me from behind. Pain, drain. Wither! No time to eat. No time for looking back. Out of instinct, I ran forward, away from the ambushing skeleton, past its silently laughing cousin. I remembered to zig as a whoosh of its arrow struck the floor just in front of me. I zagged to avoid another, but took the hit where I should sit. I winced, hissed, but kept going into the inky corridor. I could hear more clacking, more skeletons behind me. 3? 4? How many more arrows could I take? How many wither strikes? I had to get away, find a safe place, eat, heal. I couldn't take any more damage. Slowed step, spinning head, stinging shoulder, distance, safety. Blocked. Another wither skeleton, this time right in front of me, stepping into my path with stone sword raised to kill. Did I still have the strength to fight? The speed to dodge? I gritted my teeth, raised my 1,000-pound shield, and prayed with all my might for just one blessed shred of good luck. But behind it, a diamond flash. An axe, badly chipped but catching the faintest light. It smashed the wither skeleton to smoke as its ragged, huffing, utterly awesome owner stepped into view. Summer! Guy, what in the world are you doing here? Rescuing you? End of chapter 17. Minecraft The Mountain by Max Brooks. Chapter 18. Follow me. Summer led me at a run, skeletons clacking in our ears. 2 turns later, we came to a wall of netherrack surrounding an actual wooden door. Through here, she motioned, and a half-second later, I was standing in her temporary shelter. It must have originally been one of those staircase tower rooms, but the stairs had been taken away, and the rows of netherwort had been replaced by mushrooms growing on bare nether bricks. The whole scene, Summer and her room, reminded me of that experience under my island. Trapped, lost, starving, and wounded. I dug deep, both into the earth and my soul, to carve out enough space and time to recover. That had to be the case with my battered, tattered partner. Still, I had to ask, what happened? Have you met our new neighbors? She asked. The Piguettes? I call them swinelings. 3 of them just appeared behind me, 2 with swords and 1 with a crossbow. What's a crossbow? I asked. Like a bow, but on its side, and I'll explain later. What matters is that I wasn't ready. She sighed. I was injured, about to nick off home to the ice cube, when she shook her head. One of those ghastly ghasts blew a hole in her blaze pen. I saw that. And when they came whirling out, and with the whole Reddy army after me, well, she sighed again. The truth is, I wasn't thinking. Her voice lowered, hesitating with what had to be some very hard words. I wasn't thinking because I was cross. Cross at you. Cross at me for driving you off. I looked down at her unarmored feet. You didn't drive me away. I wasn't in the best of moods either. In fact, my eyes rose up to meet hers. I came back because I didn't want to part in anger. And I wanted to say, no, she interrupted. Let me say it first. I'm sorry. Me too. Fresh in 19. Friends can fight, and they can also make up. It felt so good to be back on good terms with Summer. Like I was on top of the world, instead of stuck underneath it. So, I chirped happily, now that we're cool metaphorically, let's get up to a place where we can cool literally. Well said, she chirped back, if slightly over-complex. At that, we laughed together. As you'd say, I reached into my pack. Let's get you kitted out. Spotting her crafting table, I used 4 of my 7 remaining iron ingots to craft her a pair of armored boots. Sorry, I don't have enough for a helmet. I'll take what I can get, she said, while harvesting our mushrooms. And you're welcome to my little fungi crop. I'm good, I said, grateful to still have a few carrots left. Water? I held out the last bottle. She shook her head. Better save it for when we're really thirsty. Define really. I could have drunk a lake. She laughed again. Ready for a pleasant stroll back to the ice cube? What about this way? I turned for the back wall. I'm just thinking. We could dig up through the netherrack to the landmass on the other side. That's where this tower connects to, right? We could come out on the other side, then circle back the long way to the ice cube. It might take a little longer, but we won't have to fight our way across the fortress again. It might work. Summer hesitated. about to speak, but, as I recognized later, trying not to just shoot down my idea. The only sticking point that I cannot know is if 2 landmasses connect anywhere but here. You might end up having to come back this way anyway, and with less resources than we have now. Good point, I conceded. At least we know what's waiting for us this way. I stepped out to the door. Ready, steady, follow me. Which I did, up to a point. I followed her down one muddy red hall to the next, past a reaching wither skeleton, which she yelled at me to ignore, and finally to yet another one of those brain-teasing intersections. Which way? I asked, listening for the clack of bony feet. This way, she declared, pointing to the right. I think. Think? If only I could raise my eyebrows. Well, she yawned. I haven't slept in days, and I'm pretty sure. Doubt. Me of her, and her of herself. No, she pivoted 90 degrees. This way, straight forward. You sure? No. Good enough. Twisting, turning, looking ahead and behind. Dead end, I shouted at the netherrack wall as Summer said something rude that I would not copy in these pages. Back the way we came. She turned. I looked out the barred window, and I saw the glint of something instantly familiar. Across the expanse, flickering through the window of another raised hallway, one of my netherrack torches. Look, I said, pointing through the grate. I placed those. Summer froze. Not in fear, but, I guessed, trying to calculate what it would take to cross over. Right, she said, turning back down to our aborted path. Off we go. We found the firelit path with no problem, after Summer puzzled out the correct series of turns, and as we found our way up to the catwalk, I felt hope bubbling in my chest. I didn't get a chance to say it. What is it with me and my tempting fate? On your right, shouted Summer. A try shot between the 2 of us. Its spinning gold owner aiming for a second try. Oh, for just 1 arrow. Summer swore again, at what I first figured was a blaze, until I followed her eyes down the catwalk. 3 skeletons, 1 normal and 2 wither, were clacking out of the tower entrance ahead. We couldn't go forward, obviously, and hesitating only allowed the blaze time to fire up for another burst. Let's beat it, I suggested, already retreating our path in my mind to figure out an alternative route. If we circle back to that far tower over... Summer! I should have known what was going to happen. That she just charged ahead, waving her axe, going for the first wither skeleton. I didn't see what happened next. I was now running forward myself, heading for the skeleton archer. Its bow was up, an arrow pointing at Summer. I jumped in front of her, blocking the shot with my shield, then slashed the archer to smoke before turning to face the second wither skeleton. It swung for my face. I recoiled out of its reach. A second swipe. I jumped aside, then forward. A hit. I felt bone crack from my blow. The wither skeleton flew back several paces, balancing on the edge. I sprang forward, swinging for its chest. Another hit. As the Deathbringer disappeared over the side, I let out a deep, exultant "yeah," but that "yeah" quickly became a pain-filled "yow" as 3 fireballs ignited the nether bricks under my feet. Skipping out of the flames, looking frantically for my partner, I felt my inwards clench. There she was, on the edge. She was alone, no wither skeleton to be seen. She must have won the fight, but taken a wither wound in the process. I could even see it. Little gray bubbles rising from her swaying body. Did she know where she was? How close to falling? Summer, look out! Running up to her, cursing inwardly that this rotten, cruel, utterly unfair world wouldn't let me do something as simple as grab her hand. Gotta think fast. I climbed up to the guard. A minicube, maybe, away from Summer. The angle? A gamble. I punched, and she fell back onto the flat, wide bricks. Whoa, she mumbled. jumping off the edge, shepherding her inside the tower. "I'm so sorry," I panted. "I didn't know what else to do." "It's all right," she breathed through dissipating bubbles. "Thank you." "Can you walk?" I asked, not sure how badly she'd been hurt. "I can run," she blustered. Same old Summer. "No need. I scanned the hall for enemies. Save your energy." I gathered her all the food I had left, 5 carrots and 12 sweet berries. "Where did you get these?" she asked, before munching through them like a machine. "Up in the forest," I said, as my own stomach growled. "And you'll have all you can eat when we get out of here." At least, the last leg of our journey was peaceful. Turning down stuffy passages, all we saw was empty air. Muscle unwinding, breath stabilizing. My mind began to drift to how good it would be to get back to the surface, or even just a stop at the ice cube for a quick rest and refit. Cool air, potions of healing. Descending down the spiral staircase, we heard nothing but the sound of our own feet. Food, baked potatoes, carrots, soft ever, fresh bread. Crunching onto the narrow isthmus, all I could think about was a waiting snow sanctuary. I wonder if Summer stocks any of those delicious chocolate chip Brie. We didn't notice it until the gas missile was nearly on us. "Guy!" Summer was ahead of me, turning, shoving me back, out of my daydreams, out of the blast zone. The explosion sent her crashing into me, coughing, blinking. My eyes cleared to see that the land bridge was gone, the hole now filling up with lava. There was no time to even think about repairing the damage. No chance of leaping that taunting 5-block length. Brrrr! Another missile. Another retreat, as the second explosion blew more of the land bridge away. "Into the tower," I shouted, heading for the safety of the stairs. Brrrr! The third impact threw us inside. Climbing. Huffing. Swaying for Summer, which seemed to have cooled her temper. "Looks like we'll have to try your scenic route." Walking back up to the fort, we headed for the catwalk. "I don't see our gas bag," Summer observed with a quick glance into the open, or any blazes for that matter. "They're probably all hovering for an ambush," I sneered, and I was right, at least about the blazes. No sooner had we gotten midway across the catwalk, too far to turn back safely, than one of those revolting flamethrowers floated up from beneath to settle right in front of us. "Here we go." Summer charged. I followed. In this case, her reckless courage paid off. Over her head, shooting where we were instead of where we were going to be. "Go on." Axe high, Summer jumped towards the mob. "Clear off." A flurry of metallic, clicking swipes left a puff of smoke and a blaze rod falling into her pack. Any chance to celebrate, or even congratulate her, was cut short by the clacking of wither skeletons behind us. At least there wasn't an archer with them. We could outrun swords. And outrun them we did. It didn't matter that we were burning up the remaining food in our bodies. It didn't matter that more monsters could be waiting behind every turn. We couldn't afford another fight. We had to get back to our shelter. It was a pigette, clad in hides and wielding a golden axe. It swung. I tried to block. My shield missed the blade, allowing my chest to take the full blow. "Ignore it," cried Summer. Easy for her to say. "Don't dawdle." "You're lucky she stopped me." I hollered over my shoulder, hoping my sharp words would hurt its feelings. Unfortunately, the consistent grunts told me that the brute wasn't deterred by my verbal barbs. It was coming after us. Running. We made it to the bunker, slammed the door, and tore into the back wall. My worn diamond pickaxe chewed through the netherrack like a shovel through sand. Up, up, up. A steady staircase to the land beyond. I wasn't sure how far we had to go, how much longer my one digging tool would last. I thought I heard a noise behind us, the distant creak of the bunker door opening. And then the last cube I picked gave way to a rolling rainbow. Lava! We turned to run, to head back down to the staircase. But at the bottom, the pigette's axe-wielding form blocked our way. They can open doors, I asked, stunned by the worst possible discovery at the worst possible time. To the side, shouted Summer, as lava and pork closed in from us on both directions. Burrow to the side. I turned to the right wall and picked for all that was worth. I will say about this. Our crazy, blocky world. Its rules may not always be helpful in the moment, but in this case, making lava as slow as syrup was the only thing that saved our lives. We were barely 2 blocks in before I felt the heat on my back, and Summer, 1 block behind me, must have been in true torment. But she didn't complain, and as the sound of distant squeal filled her ears, she managed and understated, "Well, he's done for." I might have chuckled in reply, if at that moment my pickaxe hadn't decided to break. "Thanks," I muttered, mentally prepping for what I have to do. Okay, so maybe digging through netherrack with your bare hands doesn't cause any permanent damage, and maybe it actually works pretty well. However, I cannot stress this strongly enough. It is not fun. Unless you like scraping your fingertips across sandpaper over and over again, block by block, minute after irritating minute. "Fancy a hand?" asked Summer, about a dozen blocks into my ordeal. "Oh no," I said, trying to sound brave. "I could do this all day." And then I descended into a poem of rude words and syllables that kept my partner giggling. "Made it," I groaned, stepping out into the desolate, foreboding netherscape. "This far," added Summer, as we took off into the reality of our situation. We were standing on the cliff of the opposite landmass. Between us lay the fortress, the lava lake, and the rising gas. "Onward then," chirped Summer, heading inland. "Wait for me," I called, and not wanting to be left out, the gas added a missile launching "Brrrr." "We gotta keep the ocean on our right," I huffed, running up next to Summer. "If we can," she answered, to the trill of an incoming bomb. It was hard to see where we were going without night vision potions to aid us in getting the lay of the land. Spotting what I thought might be a ditch, I shouted, "Cover up ahead," and changed course. We jumped into the shallow trench, just as another cannonball streaked above. "Keep running," I called, realizing I must have led us into catastrophe. At least open ground gave us room to maneuver. In that trench, we'd be pinned if that living air raid decided to pass overhead. But the next "brrrr" we heard sounded fainter, and the gas cry after that was almost inaudible. Summer must have been thinking the same thing, because she began to slow. I almost said something fate-tempting, like, "I think we're safe," but instead opted for a series of parched coughs. Summer came to a complete stop, held out a hand for me to do the same, then slowly rotated our ears to the sky. Neither of us heard anything. Summer stepped out a few blocks up to look. I stayed put, ready to bolt at the moment notice. Summer poked her head slowly up, eyes skimming the land and sky. She was about halfway through her 180 when her head just stopped. Suddenly. Blimey. End of chapter 18. Minecraft The Mountain by Max Brooks. Chapter 19. If my square eyes could have widened, you bet they would have, at the moment. Climbing up next to Summer, I gawked at what had to be a hallucination from sleep deprivation, or maybe a trick of the half-light. But I could have entirely sworn we were staring at an entirely new environment. Large pillars rising into crimson canopies, some of which held hanging vine-like ropes, or glowing cubes that were definitely not glowstone. And the air around it glowed, too, or rather, something in the air. Fireflies? My first thought was, forest, but it couldn't be, could it? "What are we seeing?" I asked both Summer and myself. "What is that?" "Brrrr," came a familiar cry from behind us. We'll know soon enough. Summer took off at a run, and I joined her. Hurrying across the final expanse of open ground, we soon found ourselves in and among the trees. And grass. At least, it looked similar to grass. crimson color aside, the little clumps grew in the same pattern as their verdant cousins up above. They were even mushrooms, not the brown or white varieties, and close to, but not quite, netherwort. These were as tall as my shin, with grayish rusty stems and reddish caps that lightened at the top. And oh, the smell! As I picked one up, the sharp, rotten cheese aroma practically socked me in the sinuses. I wouldn't try to eat those, warned Summer, not till we'd have some milk or healing potions on hand. You've never seen this? I asked. Any of this? Not till now, she answered thoughtfully. And if I was going to venture a guess, it would be that this whole biome just popped into existence with the swinelings. I'm inclined to agree with you, I answered, packing the stink shroom away. But the bigger question is, does this red forest or swamp, or whatever you want to call it, connect back to where we need to go? Only one way to find out, declared my fearless partner, coughing on the last two words. What I thought might be fireflies actually turned out to be burning cinders. More evidence that these top pools around us were alive. But what were those luminous cubes embedded in them? Glow fruit? I was about to reach up for one when the sound of a snort turned both of our heads. Did you? I started. Heard it, she finished. At first, we thought it was a piguet, and we readied our weapons for battle. We couldn't see anything. The vined columns and uneven terrain, cutting visibility nearly down to zero. Came another snort, closer this time, and frustratingly from all directions. Up there! I saw Summer looking up the incline. Beyond the vines, something was moving. 4 legs, an animal, and about half the size of a sheep. A pig? I asked. Summer nodded. Or maybe a wild boar. And as I descended the slope, I saw why she might be right. Small white tusks protruded from either side of its stubby, angular snout. Wondering how much damage those tusks might do, I retreated a few steps and started looking for the quickest escape route. Don't be so skittish, chuckled Summer as the boar trotted up to her. This little chap doesn't look it snorted as the tusk bashed her in the knee. Oi, she roared, axe swinging. The boar flashed red, gave a high-pitched then bounded back up the slope. Well, we saw him off easily enough, Summer chuckled, although it would have been nice to see how he might taste. I didn't share her levity. Something about the creature gave me an uneasy feeling. The size, the reaction. It reminded me too much of the baby pig-like I've first seen down here. And how if there were small ones? I think we better get out of here, I said, turning too late to Summer. I saw the mama boar just as it hit her from behind. She flew, catapulted by the tusks, toward the lava. Pivoting toward me, the cow-sized, fur-backed tink of an animal gave an angry snort, as if to say, "You're next." There wasn't time to turn and to see if Summer was okay. I raised my shield, lashed out with my sword, and in anticipation of the coming attack, turned my back to the land. Mama Bear snorted and charged at me like a runaway minecart. And it sure felt like I was hit by one. Even with my raised shield and swinging sword, she managed to toss me right up onto the hillside above her and right into my trap, so to speak. Wisdom under pressure. I figured the only way to counteract her raw power was a fight from higher ground. And I also figured that the only way to reach that higher ground in time was to let her give me a boost. It hurt, no mistake about that. But it was well worth the wound for this advantage. "Come on," I taunted. "Come on and get me." She snorted, shook her battering ram head, and barreled up into my weighing sword. "This little piggy went to the market," I snarled, slicing and waiting for her to fall. Only she didn't. I've been wrong about that part. But when she struck, the blow only lifted me 1 block higher, and this little piggy stayed home. And you can guess how it went. A battle royale between tusk and blade. Of all the creatures I faced in melee battles, nothing has been as tough as this little piggy. I've never seen anything take this much punishment and dole out so much more than her share. The tears in my armor, in my flesh. On the 3rd blow, I felt my ribs crack. I coughed hard and finished my battle chant, and this little piggy cried, "Wee, wee, wee." The 3rd wee did it. The poor kind juggernaut squealed into smoke, hovering hide, and "Pork," called Summer, pulling my eyes up to a tree. Small price to pay for being hit by a speeding lorry. "Summer," I cried, then wheezed in pain for a moment. "You're okay." "I wouldn't go that far," she said, gesturing to her pillared prison. "I broke my axe trying to chop my way down, and I fear my poor old bones won't take the slightest bounce." "It's okay," I called, reaching for my own battered axe. "Don't sweat it. I'll get you down." "Perhaps you can think up another nursery rhyme battle chant while you do it," she taunted. "That was quite an entertaining show from up here." "Keep it up," I said between chops, "and I'll keep you up there." Chopping through the tree's purplish wood, I managed to slowly lower the trunk for Summer to get safely grounded. She was in pretty bad shape, stepping down the last block with an audible groan. "Ain't we a pair?" I coughed, wincing at the pain in my ribs. "Ready to eat meat now?" she asked, reaching for what I guessed were the slabs of boar. "Maybe," I nodded, inhaling sharply at the pain I felt. "But not until we've cooked it. Last thing we need is food poisoning." "Can't argue with that." She looked around and said, "But since we don't have any cobblestone for a furnace, we may have just give it a go and hope for the best." "It may not come to that," I said, examining the purple logs in my hand. "We've got wood now, which means basic tools, which means maybe I'd noticed that some of the land around us look like earth. These grasses produce seeds." I started punching up the crimson clumps, my mind racing with ideas. "Do you really think we have time for farming?" challenged Summer, no doubt wishing this world would let her put her hands on her hips. "Maybe not," I said, after the 10th clump produced no seeds. But I saw another mushroom growing nearby. This one was green, rather than rusty, with a red speckled cap. I picked it up, raised it to my nose, and gagged. To be polite, it didn't exactly smell like the sulfurous netherrack, but kind of definitely in the same family. Kind of like what we get from cows. And I'm pretty sure I know this because I'm pretty sure I remember smelling it on people's lawns. Figures. I can't remember who I am, or where I'm from, or any other important fact about my old world. But I can tell you what folks in that world use for fertilizer. "Whiffy?" asked Summer. "Whiffy," I responded, "but possibly useful. If the 2 mushroom theory works down here, we've got wood for bowls now, and if we gather enough for a stew." Another boar-like snort sounded nearby, closing in. "Which will have to wait," said Summer, looking over my shoulder. I turned, just in time to see a whole herd. Yes, herd of those mammoth killer boars. 3 adults and 2 boarlets, bounding down the slope towards us. "This way," I shouted, sprinting through a curtain of crimson vines. "Stay along the coast." They didn't let up, those snorting, cavorting beasts. They stayed right on our tail, so close I imagined I could feel their hot, wet breath on my back. "Just super," huffed Summer sarcastically. "The speed of spiders and the patience of zombies." "We'll lose them," I panted, with all the fake positivity I could muster. "You'll see." I was wrong, of course. They didn't lose interest in us, but we did manage to gain some distance, which thankfully bought us time at the next obstacle. We were running among the trees, trying to keep the lava on our right, when suddenly the ground came up right in front of us, forming a solid cliff. "Think fast." Got a dig? I tossed Summer my sword and tore into the netherrack with my bare hands. We were 3 blocks in and 2 blocks high when the first little boar brat showed up. Go on, Summer shouted with flailing sword. Sling your hook. I didn't see any of this. I was too busy scratching your way to safety. I heard the impact of the blade, the squeal of the retreating tusker, and the deep, angrier snort of its parent. Hang on, mused Summer, as I finished tearing out 2 more blocks. I think they're too big to squeeze through. I turned to see the garbage can-sized head sniffing just outside her tunnel. I think you're right, I said, then turned back to work. They can't get in, but we can't get out. Back to burrowing like a mole, if the mold in question could feel the sting of every scrape. Please don't be lava, I prayed to the netherrack wall before me. Please don't be lava. It wasn't, but at one point I opened up the lower block right above a sizzling magma block. Eow, I yipped, bouncing back into Summer. Maybe now's the time for those crude tools, she suggested. Don't you still have 3 iron ingots? I do, I sighed, hauling up a space up for a crafting table. But I don't want to use up the only metal we've got. The wooden pickaxe worked great, or at least spared my poor raw fingers more torment. I tunneled around the crafting table, then over the magma blocks and forward into sweltering darkness. For a minute or so, everything went smoothly. Netherrack falling before us and biting boards echoing behind us. That is, until we hit a deposit of black stone. Obsidian? Asked Summer to my back. I shook my head. Not as dark, I observed, and it gives way easier to my pick, but not enough to come free right away. It must have to do with the change. And suddenly, my heart beat faster. If it's anything like the regular gray stone, we can upgrade our tools, make new weapons, and craft when we have time, Summer reminded, with the snorts of her jailers for backup. For now, please just go around. I couldn't disagree, and picked up a sideways detour. But the discovery alone was enough to lift my spirit. And as the next netherrack cube fell away, I practically jumped for joy. Gold! Seriously? Summer tried to see in the narrow space. Here? Again, with the change, I exclaimed, examining the glimmering netherrack embedded flakes. We now have a source of metal. My mind started spinning on possibilities, tools, weapons, armor. But suddenly, another pained pulled me back. The boars, said Summer, looking back down the tunnel. Are they fighting each other? Or something else, I wondered. We should have kept going. And maybe, if we'd been better fed and rested, we would have let curiosity get the better of us. They could be fighting amongst themselves, I thought out loud, as we stepped cautiously back out our escape tunnel. You know, like when skeletons have those arrow duels. Or, Summer picked up the pace, excitement rising with each word. Someone is killing them to save us. Another castaway, I blurted out, practically bumping into her. Another human. Turning at the black stone deposit, we could now see the length of the burrow. Someone might already be living down there, Summer continued, in their own safe, comfy fortress. Close now, almost at the edge. We still couldn't see anything, but the squeals and grunts rang loudly in our ears. Or someone just got here, spawned here. I swapped my wooden pickaxe for my worn iron axe. They might be in trouble. We might have to save ourselves. Because just as we were about to peek out to meet our savior, the gold helmeted head of a pigette poked in. Bad idea, I shouted, turning to run as Summer muttered a weird, rooster-based profanity. Block them off, I shouted over my shoulder, as the holes of multiple pigettes filled the hole. Can't, shouted Summer. You have all the netherrack. I grunted, repeating her bird expletive, and hurriedly switched from axe back to a pickaxe. Think whatever higher power created this world, that luck was finally on our side. It took only a few swipes before we broke on to the other side. This forest was similar to the first, at least in the shape and size of the trees. But their color, the color of everything around us, was bluish green: trees, ground, the ash floating in the air. After so many shades of red for so long, the stark contrast took a moment to get used to. "Block it up," shouted Summer as the Piguet horde closed in. I threw down the first netherrack block, felt the hot, displaced air of a crossbow arrow whistling past my cheek, then fixed the second one in place. "Right then," Summer sighed. "Now, let's see if we can find our way to..." More snorts, too loud and close. "Up there," I shouted, pointing at the hill behind us. "Another boar herd." "Oh, for heaven's sake," Summer hissed as we tore blindly through the woods. "Just a moment, will you? Just a moment to breathe." I don't know who she was talking to. Herself? The fates? Or, similarly, the invisible creators of this world? In any case, whoever she was pleading with wasn't answering, as we squeezed through a couple of weird veined trees and skidded to a stop within mere blocks of lava. We were on a peninsula, a slim finger pointing out onto the boiling sea. The boars, seconds behind us. "Well, that's it then," Summer turned with a raised sword. "Never thought I'd die in a last stand." "And you won't." I sprang forward with an idea in my head and netherrack in my hand. "We are not gonna die today." End of chapter 19. Minecraft The Mountain by Max Brooks. Chapter 20. "Build a bunker," I shouted, slamming down the first block. "Here." I didn't see her pick up the throw netherrack stack. I'd already turned back to lay the first line. "Quick." I guess it was kind of overkill. A single wall probably would have been enough. But I wanted to be 100% sure, and judging from Summer's rushing to help, she agreed. As the boar battalion stampeded toward us, we laid down the first 4-block high wall across the length of the peninsula, then the sides, then the back, then the roof. We didn't have too much netherrack left, but we didn't need it, as the double trees growing out of our floor covered most of the space, and their light fruits allowed us to see. There, I fixed the final netherrack roof block in place. "Done." Turning back to Summer, I declared, "Now we do it my way. No more running, no more fighting. We need to take a moment, take a breath, and take the necessary steps to figure out what to do next." "All right then." Summer surprisingly agreed. "We'll do it your way." "Now what do we do?" I hadn't thought that far ahead. I thought Summer would have fought against my being in charge. "We, practice, that way you were talking about," suggested Summer. "The way of the cube?" "Exactly," I proclaimed, latching onto the lifeline she'd thrown to me. "The way of the cube. I was just about to say that. Plan, prepare, prioritize, practice, patience. Persevere." "So," Summer continued, calmly knocking out a block of the landward-facing wall, "in order to have a plan, we should probably take the time to study these world changes." Again, about to say it, I said with a small laugh, and hauled out another hole in the lava-facing side. "Priority 1, watch and learn." And we watched. I'm not sure for how long. Between no sun and lack of sleep, it was nearly impossible to tell time. Especially when all I could learn from that bubbling molten soup was what I'd already known for too long. End of the line. Patience. The monotony was only broken when Summer announced, "Our friends have shown up." And from the grunts and clinking of gold armor, I didn't have to ask who those friends were. "They're at it again," she narrated to the pain squeals off the nether boars, "and it doesn't look like they're hunting for food." More squeals. More battle din. "Must be for self-defense," she pondered, "or perhaps they just enjoy killing for sport." "Then that makes them real monsters," I said, which makes me feel a whole lot better about fighting them. Morality aside, Summer kept her eyes glued to the battle raging outside our bunker. They did also leave us a feast of raw workshops, which reminds me, and she reached for the 2 pink slaps in her pack. "Hold on," I warned and got out my wooden pickaxe. "We still need to figure out a way to cook it." Where do you think you're going? She asked as I began tearing up our dirt floor. Remember that black stone we tunneled past? I responded, stripping away the first layer of bricks. There's got to be more, maybe even down here. Well, do be careful, my partner warned. You don't know if our little outcropping is resting atop more lava. Don't worry, I said, making sure never to dig directly down. I know what I'm doing. And for once, I did. Blackstone Central, I cried, exposing a rich deposit. Oh yeah, I didn't even mind my pickaxe breaking with the next strike. A few quick chops against our central tree gave me enough wood for a crafting table and another, all wooden pickaxe. And I didn't have to worry about the tops of the tree falling in because of this wonderful world's different rules of gravity. So awesome, I hummed as block after block of blackstone flew into my pack. Enough for tools and a furnace and oh, sorry, asked Summer. I didn't want to get excited. The disappointment would hurt too much if I was wrong. Can I see that rod you got from the last blaze? She nodded and handed it over. What on earth are you? Oh, you know where I'm going, I said, placing the rod on the crafting table along with 3 blocks of blackstone. And here we go. First came the brewing stand, dunking onto the floor between us. Next came the ingredients we'd been randomly collecting. Another wort from when she converted her hideout to a mushroom farm. Magma cream from when I'd fought that first magma cube. And lastly, but ridiculously, awesomely not least, the lone bottle of water. We did it, I cried, brandishing the bottle of fire resistance. We can walk out of here. No, sighed Summer. We can't. Tire screech. You take it, said Summer. Get yourself out of here. Get back to the surface and collect all the armor and equipment. No, I said, pushing the potion toward her. You know your way back better than me. You should be the one to take it. But you're the one who deserves it. Summer's eyes fell. Her voice softened. I'm the one who got us into this, so I'm the one who should stay. We both got ourselves into this, I batted back, stepping right up into her face, and we'll both get out together. Slipping the potion into my belt, I said, I left you once and I will never ever leave you alone again. Fresh and 20. Friends don't leave friends behind. Summer sniffed, finally meeting my eyes. 2 words escaped her mouth, her voice cracking on the second. Thank you. I held out my fist. She connected. Come on, I said, going back to the crafting table. We're on too much of a roll to stop now. Persevere. 8 black blocks later, we had our furnace. Hungry? I asked, and she slipped the raw boar slabs into the upper slot. And now? I held up a handful of purple bark logs. Here we... No ignition. Aw, come on. Likewise, the furnace rejected the striped blue-green planks. Come on. Maybe we got our hopes too high, Summer muttered, and reached again for the uncooked meat. Or, I held up my new all-wooden pickaxe. We just haven't explored every option. By the glow fruit's faint orange light, the wood didn't look any different from surface types. But remembering one of my earlier experiments on the island, I placed a tool in the furnace's lower slot and let out a resounding, "Aw yeah," fire. Just cause the rules don't make sense to us, I sang, doing my signature happy dance, don't mean they don't make sense. Dividing logs into planks and then planks into sticks, we stood back happily as the room filled with the aroma of grilling pork. You can't be picky now, Summer said, offering me a steaming chop. I'm not, I said, refusing the morsel, but you clearly need the healing more than me. Thank you. Summer's voice rose an octave on you, as if she was fighting back more emotion than she could handle. She must have won the battle because, clearing her throat, she retook her position on the landside window and said, Soon as those boar breakers leave, I'll promise I'll swipe you all those hovering chops. I'm just glad they don't eat them, I said, back at my lava side post. Cause pigs being eaten by humanoid pigs is just creepy and weird. I mean, that'd be like us eating monkeys and apes. Do people do that back in our world? They wouldn't, you think? I think you need to overthink everything, Summer laughed. I joined her in a mutual crack-up and was about to say something I'm sure I would only think was witty when whatever was about to come out of my mouth evaporated into a surprised gasp. Whoa! What? Come here. Summer knocked out another block next to me. What are you on about? Those dots in the lava, the ones I'd seen when I walked right after the change. Here they were, up close. Walking, yes, walking across the lava. Not magma cubes, but similar in shape and size. 2 stubby legs supported a head slightly larger, but similar in color to netherrack. Small, almost human eyes sat above a wide, thin, frowning mouth. Sparse whitish hairs, or maybe quills,
almost like a porcupine's, flapped slowly from both sides of his head/body. And on top of that head/body, what is that? I pointed to a tan, seemingly painted-on object. Can't tell from this angle, she responded. Me neither. At lava level, it was hard to see. Only one way to find out. Standing under the canopy of our central algae-colored tree, I chopped out enough wood to make enough sticks for 4 sections of a ladder. Let's have a better look. I'll go, said Summer. I'm stronger than you now, thanks to those chops, and so if there's a ghastly blaze or one of those swineling sharpshooters, I can take the hit. Please be careful, I said, stepping away from the ladder, and don't get too close to the edge. Not planning on it, she shimmied up the wall. What came out of her mouth is still a mystery to me. It sounded like core, but what kind of expression is that? What is it? I called up. What do you see? A saddle, she called, sliding down next to me. Guy, it's wearing a ruddy saddle. Get out. I ran to the window, peering with all my might. Yes! Now that I knew what to look for, it was definitely a saddle, which meant we can ride out of here. And turning to Summer, I saw that she was holding the other saddle she found in the fortress. Yes, we can. Brill, I said, quoting her. Now all we gotta do is prepare a snare. Right, Summer chirped. If they're anything like the horses and pigs up top, all we need are fishing poles and carrots. Well, I happy danced. We got wood for sticks, and I always carry my spider silk, but my dancing slowed. We don't have any carrots. Getting to an emotional halt, Summer gave a long before saying, Maybe we don't need any. How so? I asked, hoping she had a good idea. Maybe, Summer began pacing by the window. If these lava-striding creatures were created specifically for this environment, they might also be attracted to a local food source. But we don't have any local food. Don't we? The question hung for a moment before, You're a genius. I hopped up, reaching to my pack for the crimson stink shroom. The idea was right, if not the first result. After assembling our fishing poles, we discovered that they refused to take the ruby bait. Gordon Bennett, huffed Summer angrily. Who? Never mind, she sighed wearily. There must be an alternative, something else. Right at her feet, I reached down for a couple of the speckled turquoise variety, and this time they took. Come on then, said Summer as I knocked down a corner of the lava-facing wall. Come and get it. But the saddled lava walker was too far away to notice. Instead, it sauntered frustratingly back past our bunker and down the coast. Looks like we'll have to go for it, I said, peering out of the landward window for any threats. No pigites, but I better make a stone sword before we... No time, she practically jumped in front of the window. It's getting away. Widening the opening into the doorway, I noticed that the hovering chops weren't the only loot left behind in the pigite board battle. The four-leggers had given as good as they'd gotten, killing enough of their hunters to leave a golden helmet, a golden sword, and one of those sideway crossbow thingies. Here, I said, tossing my beer-headed partner the headgear. I'll collect the loot while you lure the walker. Righto, chimed Summer, going after the saddled beast. I snatched up the chops, the sword, and was just reaching for the bow when I heard the first pigite snort. Guy, I spun, diamond sword ready. Summer was down the beach, unarmed and surrounded. Don't come any closer, she was talking to me, warning me away. They're not attacking you, I called, shocked at how she was moving easily among them. How astute, she said with a hint of annoyance. Which is why I told you not to get any closer. But why? I think it's a golden helmet. Really? There's nothing else different about me, is there? Or, I said, as I took a half step closer towards her, it's the mushroom on the end of the rods we both... They all snorted, turned, and charged. Or not, I ran for the bunker. Block yourself up, Summer hollered. I'm fine out here. Good to know, I yelled in response, rushing back into the bunker, trying to quickly turn the doorway back into a window. I took a punch from one of the little piglets that crawled through after me. Aw, dude, I winced, a sword swipe sending it scrambling back. You alright in there? Yes, if by alright, I fumed, you mean that I can't get out, you can't get in, and our only means of escape is escaping. Oh, stop your blubbering, chuckled Summer, and get up on the roof to toss me your pickaxe. Pickaxe? I couldn't have been more confused. What could you possibly... The gold, Summer could not have sounded more exasperated, for another helmet. You sure it's your gold helmet? You have a better idea? My silence was my answer, and it sent me to the crafting table for a black stone pickaxe, just in case the all-wooden model wouldn't do. Here, I called from the window, tossing the new tool out to Summer. Be back in a jiff, she chirped, scampering well past the pigites into a tunnel, and in a few short moments she was back and tossing a handful of nuggets through the window. Hope it's enough. It was. Swapping my diamond helmet for the gold version, I gulped nervously and opened the window back into a doorway. They were out there, the whole mob of pigite horrors. I looked at them. Some looked at me, and none of them came forward to attack. Awesome, I sighed, sauntering casually among them. Hey Bob, nice to see you. Fred, how's it going? Love the axe, Karen, is it new? The piglets just stared at me with their beady pearl eyes and slogged away into the woods. Oh yeah, I totally get it, I quipped after them. Places to go, things to kill. But you got my number, let's grab lunch. Are you quite finished? Commenting Summer after an audible clearing of her throat. I was about to wrap up my 15-minute set when both of us turned at the sound of a rumbling killer boars, another herd that heard us. And from their angry avalanche down the hill, it didn't look like our helmets worked on them. Right then, Summer yipped and rushed back over to the shore. Over here, she called to the saddled walker. Look what I got for you. Fine time to mention this, I muttered as the boars were halfway down the hill. But we don't know if the bait actually works. Yes, we do, cried Summer as her prospective mount spun towards her. Here, she called, right here. And suddenly she was on, riding the creature like a horse. And the other one, she called, pointing to a second walker. I don't have the other saddle, I realized aloud, just as the boars hit level ground. Summer uttered one of her weird foreign curses and tossed me the letter C. I reached to pick it up just as the first boar tagged me right in my bottom. Guy, flying through the air, arced down right towards the lava. I hit the beach with just one block to spare. Not burnt alive, but so battered and gored that one more hit would finish me. Don't look behind you, Summer called over the growing grunts. Just get the beastie. I held out my rod to the unsaddled walker. It saw me, started over. So slow. Come on. Guy, close enough, throwing on the saddle. Behind you. Closer snorts. Thundering hooves. Look out. End of chapter 20.
Minecraft The Mountain by Max Brooks. Chapter 21. Woo! Riding. On lava. I didn't care that my toes felt like french fries or that my lungs were crisping from each breath. Not today, bacon bits, I called back to the beach pigettes, seeing just how close they were, being able to hit me. Not today. Guy, called Summer from across the Red Sea. You're going the wrong way. Oh, right, I shouted, realizing I was heading back towards the shore of the Crimson Woods. How do I turn around? Just turn the fishing pole, shouted Summer. Point it where you need to go. Oh, right. I twisted the shroom-hooked rod back towards my partner. Got it. Then, as I passed her, I realized I didn't know how to stop. Whoa, I ordered. Then louder, whoa. The big-headed beast just gurgled back at me. Come on, Gurgle, I pleaded, as if naming the animal would help. Will you just stop already? Put the rod away, Summer laughed. As the fishing pole slipped into my belt, the mount beneath me halted. Not so hard. Summer and her steed trotted up next to me. Just takes a little practice. You know what else takes practice? Changing helmets atop a strange new animal in the middle of a lethal lake. Coming to a complete stop made me realize what a number that last boar battle had done on me. I heard to ride, to breathe, and I figured that I couldn't afford to pass up even the slightest extra bit of protection. So I tried swapping out my golden helmet for the diamond version in my pack, but I dropped it, the gold one, right into the seething sop. No matter, comforted Summer. I'm sure you can find more gold along the way. And pulling out our fishing poles, we started off at a brisk trot. I don't think we can reach the ice cube, said Summer, motioning with her head to the crimson forest. I don't think the two lava lakes connect. She was right. The lava we rode on was separated from the Black Fortress by a tall, sheer cliff. That had to have been the landmass we'd run across just before reaching the Crimson Woods. But running down the trench had blinded us to the lay of the land. I think if we keep to the coast on our right, continued Summer, it must wind back around to the portal. Are you sure? I asked dubiously. Not a bit. was all I got back. All right then, nothing to do but just sit back and enjoy the ride. And we actually did. I'm not saying this new nether is my first choice for spring break or anything, but the changes were kind of fascinating to watch. For starters, these lava walkers were the craziest creatures I've ever seen. Not only could we ride them, but in a couple instances, I saw them actually riding each other. I even saw one swimming up a lava column, using it like an elevator on its way to, the cavern roof? Lava's a funny thing down here. The pigettes and battle boars stayed well away from it. Clearly, they were both burnt. But one time we saw a zombie pigman being carried down a slope on it. No flames, no sign of distress. It looked no different than if we were riding down a surface hill on a stream of cool blue water. Just because the rules don't make sense to me doesn't mean they don't make sense. I'll also admit that the Crimson Forest didn't look so bad from a distance, and the turquoise variety was genuinely pretty. And they were both so big, vertically as well as horizontally. It would have taken days, maybe weeks, to build enough ladders and staircases to reach each level. I'm just talking about the attached levels. There seemed to be more of those floating islands, some with crimson or turquoise trees on top. I would have continued to stare at them if another wild sight hadn't grabbed my gaze. A lava walker, gurgling past us, with a zombie pig guy riding on top. And further down, past another grown walker riding atop his friend, with a smaller baby walker riding his parent. Kinda gets you thinking, I said, pulling up next to Summer. About what? She asked, eyes firmly fixed in our path. If there are baby walkers, then there might be a way to breed them. And eat them? What? No! Summer laughed. Just winding with you. Ha, I flat chuckled back. Then, to my mount, don't listen to her, gurgle. Summer shook her head at that, no doubt about to lob another snark grenade. But just then, we entered a new environment. So different and unexpected, it practically made my square head spin around. For one thing, the air changed. Again. From the bluish green of the turquoise forest to a heavy grayish mist. And the land looked like whoever created it was either very distracted or else had a real mean sense of humor. The land itself was made from some kind of wavy black and gray material, jutting here and there in sharp, ragged, uneven patches. The whole biome looked like a monster mouth with broken teeth. And if there was any safe place to land, neither one of us could spot it. Curiouser and curiouser, mused Summer, prompting me to wonder where I first heard that phrase. Was it in that book about the little girl who fell down the rabbit hole, or where those two dudes go crazy in Las Vegas? Either way, the phrase applied here, especially where the magma cubes were concerned. So many of them, hopping across the small horizontal island or splashing across the burning liquid. I mused. There is a lot of harvestable magma cream, which still requires more water for potions, sighed Summer. Right, I sighed back, my mind now filling with the fantasy of a cool drink. Above you, cried Summer, twisting her walker away from me. I looked up too late, as a blinding blob fell on top of me from above. I wasn't hurt too badly, thank you, Diamond Helmet, but I could feel the animal beneath my shutter. You okay, Gurg? I asked, looking up just in time. Eyes. Large, emotionless, sunset-colored eyes stared down as the living block leapt again. Get out of there, guy! Raising my fishing pole to the side, I coaxed Gurgle out of harm's way. You may be faster in lava, I said to the pursuing hopper, but you're still slower than me. For heaven's sakes, Summer shouted, don't waste time taunting it. I looked up and around to see more cubes advancing from all directions. Another few moments, and we'd be surrounded. This way, called Summer, galloping through the largest gap. I tried to follow her, but the gap was closing fast. 2 cubes, left and right, were closing in. Go, Gurgle, I grunted to my mono-speed mount. This is your life, too. Even if it could understand me, who knows if it could have gone any faster. The closer we got, the slimmer the gap became. "Come on, Guy," Summer said, riding back toward me. The magma and Summer leapt in unison. I saw the glint of a golden sword. Not enough to split, but the flashing red hopper was knocked out of my way. "Thanks," I breathed. "Thank me later." Summer galloped in front of me. "We're not clear yet." Maybe this world's a video game, as Summer thinks, or maybe, as I believe, it's just set up to mimic one. Either way, the next few heart-pounding minutes could have been synced to an electronic score. Lava cubes everywhere, bouncing from the islands, falling in front of us from the cliffs, closing in on all sides, turning, dodging, squeezing between two rock pillars, right, left, over a collection of rocks, gurgle slowing, hurting. It could move on land, but only in pain. Back into the fire. Open space. Around the lava fall. Stop! I practically cartoon screeched to a halt as the magma cube plopped in front of us from out of the rolling column. "We're almost out," Summer, a little ahead of me, motioned with a rod. There were no more pogo cubes ahead, no more jagged rock spikes. We were back in the familiar, pre-change wasteland. To our left, nothing but open lava. And to our right, the same mundane, overhanging netherrack cliffs that rose up to... "Look!" Summer's voice. Shocked. Happy. I stopped, craned my head. Above us, on the cliff's edge, rested a torch-topped quartz cube. "And there," I shouted, pointing to several more. This was definitely the trail, close enough for us to follow. "Come on then," trumpeted Summer, as we rode parallel to the path above. "I think I know where we are." I didn't answer. I was looking for a spot where we could travel by land. A beach, a slope, even a straight up and down cliff face for us to tunnel upward. The problem was that the trail was built in an overhang that hung way out into the sea. And that overhang's roof was too high for us to even think about reaching. Believe me, I tried to think of everything. I also tried not to think of what might happen if, heaven forbid, the trail turned inland away from us. "We may have to tunnel up," I admitted after a few minutes. "Even if we end up far away from the path, far enough from the overhang where the netherrack meets the lava, we can at least burrow into..." "No, there!" Summer came to a full stop, pointing ahead to a dim blue light. It was hard to see through the mist, but riding just a little further, I thought I could make out several of those lights. Fires, but definitely greenish blue. More changed land, I observed, and it looks like that's the only way up to the trail. "Is it?" countered Summer. "Seems a bit riskier than finding a place to tunnel up through the cliff." "Is it?" I lobbed back, motioning to the overhang I just talked about. "Even if you do find a way to tunnel up, which doesn't seem very likely, what about the risks of lava pockets above our heads?" On her silence, I pressed with, "At least this new land might connect right to the path. And if it's as wide open as it looks, we'll have plenty of warning if..." Bree! We acted on instinct, jerking our mounts to either side. "I can't see it," I cried as a flaming cannonball streaked in below us. The angle was odd, shallow. "I can't see either." Summer's eyes were on the sky. Nothing. We scanned the mist for any hint of the floating bomber. Nothing. Bree! Another attack. This time behind us. And again, we rode out of the way. I saw that the projectile was practically skimming the surface. "Where?" I began, and then, tracing the missile's invisible trail, I realized we were looking in the wrong direction. Bree! Rising from the sea, the pale forehead and black-lined eyes. "Look down," I called to Summer. "It's in the lava." "Never saw them do that," Summer muttered in her usual casual tone. "Looks like we'll have to make haste for the shore." "No time," I gulped as a flat mouth opened for another fireball. "I'll draw its fire." Old tactic. New environment. As Summer rode in a wide arc behind the gas, Gurgle and I galloped right for it. Sorry you have to do this, I whispered. I know you don't really have a vote, but I promise, I wouldn't do this if I didn't have to. Gurgle just gave a gurgle, which I took for, just shut up and focus. At first, we avoided the fireballs easily, but running out of distance also meant running out of dodge time. You know I can't keep this up, Gurgle gurgled, or at least I imagine that's what he meant. I know, I grunted as a fireball passed close enough to burn the hairs out of my nose. Just a little bit closer, a little bit, nearly there, nearly in sword range. But then something gold glinted above the rising white submarine. A flash, and then a dying gas hissed as Summer rode up next to me. Pity, she murmured, as the popping monster sank. This way cancels out any chance of gathering tears. Oh, good heavens, no, I shot back, trying to mimic both her accent and sarcasm. I suppose we'll just have to get home safe and alive and whatnot. Summer tried, I guess, to give me a playful swat, but I rode just beyond her 4-block hyper reach. Oh, get back here, she laughed, as I zigzagged just out of her grasp. Run, rabbit, I sang back, leading us toward those mysterious blue fires. End of chapter 21.
Minecraft The Mountain by Max Brooks. Chapter 22. This was another new land and was easily the most inhospitable of anything we'd ever encountered. Through aquamarine mist, we could only see what looked like a valley, but a valley composed mostly of soul sand. That's where the lights were coming from. Patches of them were burning, eerie flickers that looked more suited to the burners of a stove. They even smelled a little like a stove, that whiff of gas before it lights, and maybe this might be a mistake of my hazy memory, but isn't that gas poisonous if breathed? Death seemed to hang there, and yeah, I know it sounds a little overly dramatic, but you'll see soon enough what I mean. We rode to the edge of the shore and said, at least in my case, an emotional farewell to our underworld steeds. Right. Off you go then. That was all Summer said to hers, riding the walker onto land, then hopping off and shoving its quivering, clearly suffering animal back to its liquid habitat. My actions were similar, but as the burbling, cool-headed face turned in my direction, I couldn't help but say thank you. I hadn't had long enough to get to know the animal, but in the short time we'd been together, I couldn't help but think back to Moo. I wondered how she was doing, along with the rest of the animal gang. And I know this is just silly and sentimental, but as the walker strode away in the heat, I whispered, if you ever find yourself up top and need a friend, I got a whole island of them that I know would be glad to meet you. Here we go then, chirped my partner, and from the looks of things, we're in for quite a slog. What she meant was the soul sand, the whole slowing beach of it, crunch, 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 one plodding footstep at a time. And it didn't help that I could feel the stuff scrape down into my boots. Don't worry, Summer must have known what I was thinking. It'll vanish when we get out, like pop drying when you get out of water. Well, that's reassuring, I grumbled, feeling the hard, scratchy grit between my toes. You'll live, scolded Summer. He didn't, I volleyed, motioning to the weird, white 4-block arches we were passing. Not quartz, which you could see the closer we got. I reached out to punch one of the blocks, and just as I suspected, it turned out to be solid bone. This was a skeleton, the leftover of some gigantic life form. Go figure, I huffed. A brand new place with ancient bones. And ruins, added Summer, pointing to another kind of skeleton. Yes, this time I am being poetic. Because this was the skeleton of a fortress, smashed, hollowed-out ruins that, back in its heyday, must have been a magnificent bastion. Unlike the tall, slim towers that rose from lava, this land-based redoubt was comprised of two shorter, thicker keeps. Isn't that the word for castle buildings? Keeps? One of them looked reasonably intact, while the other appeared to be gutted down to its bones. And no, said Summer, preempting what she knew was coming, I definitely do not want to investigate. Why, I argued, the portal's not going anywhere, and with all the changes, who knows what's waiting for up ahead. If this place, I jerked my head to the Black Castle, is anything like the lava forts, we might find chests or stuff we'll need. And if we find other baddies, countered Summers. Then you can blame me for everything on the way to the afterlife? I was really impressed with that comeback. I think I even nodded at myself. Summer just took a moment, sighed, and changed course for the ruins. And wow, were they ruined. You could barely make out what the original structure used to be. What I thought was the intact keep seemed to be a patchwork of various materials. There was that wavy grayish rock, some blackstone, bricks made from black stone, and as we got close enough to be made sure, blackstone embedded with flecks of gold. That's got to be enough here to make me a new helmet, I said, admiring the tantalizing luster. And then some. We can collect it on the way back, said Summer nervously. Let's not dilly-dally now. Wouldn't want to dilly-dally, I replied, half teasing, half agreeing. Is that a light? Around the corner, on the first of the connecting floors. Probably more lava, said Summer, as we crept around for a look. What we found was a lantern, instantly recognizable by the metal cage. You'd think these came with the change? I asked, punching it off the ceiling. Just like a torch, it blinked out in my hand. Couldn't care less, said Summer. I'm just grateful for the light. I concur, I said, reattaching it to the wall. And there's another. Below us, down-sloping blackstone. We could see one illuminating a lower floor. Careful, warned Summer, looking and listening with each step. This basement, or sub-basement, looked like nothing but a showroom of every way to die in the nether. Patches of magma blocks, small pools of open lava, a few dark holes that dropped into who knows what, and as we peered across the vast wrecked space, the faint distant movement of either a battle boar or a lone piget. Let's get out of here, suggested Summer, turning back for the steps. Wait, I pointed to something nearly hidden by a black stone brick column. A color that wasn't supposed to be here, tan and bright. A chest! I hopped down the last step, scampering across the hazard-laden ground. Jackpot! Gold! Not just flakes or nuggets or even bars, but pure blocks of it. Enough for weapons, tools, and whole suits of armor. That wasn't the only metal. There were a few plates of this brown, battered, really tough-looking stuff. Something unique to this world, probably. Something that sent my curiosity into overdrive. And what's this? It looks like obsidian, but veined with some luminescent purple material. We can figure it out later, snapped Summer as I continued to rummage like a kid in a toy store. Food, I cried, handing her 2 cooked pork chops, for both of us. There were also 9 golden carrots hanging out in the bottom of the chest, sweet, crunchy, and glided with extra healing. Oh, that's better, I hummed as my regenerating body banished the aches and pains. I continued to look through the chest and found arrows, 3 for each of us. And finally, the greatest treasure in this or any other world, a book. It's all here, I gasped, thumbing quickly to the pages. Everything we need to know about the changes. Can we know them later? Summer was not amused. And I wasn't listening. Get this, the Crimson Forests are actually called Crimson Forests. Nailed it. The blue-green ones are called Warped for some reason. Our lava walkers are Striders. Guy, her voice was lower now, more businesslike than annoyed. That jagged maze we rode through is a basalt delta. Guy, slightly louder, more urgent. And this new metal here is called Book closed, eyes up. A herd of battle boars, or to be accurate, hoglins, thinks Book, just had entered the opposite end of the basement. I saw them just as they saw us. Right, I yipped as their meandering trot became a focused gallop. Let's go, back up the stairs and right into piglins. That's what the book called them, and judging by the way they came after my non-gold helmet itself, they clearly called me Target. The other tower, Summer shouted, stepping back to allow me to get past her. I'll cover you. I wouldn't have known what she meant if I hadn't glanced back for a second. Ever heard the phrase passive resistance? I'm not sure where I read it, and I'm not sure exactly what it means. But in this case, it applied to Summer, just standing there in front of the piglins. She wasn't attacking them, just passively blocking their path. The piglins, for their part, didn't seem to notice she was there, or else did and didn't see her as anything more than a stubborn member of their party. I heard them snort, probably saying, "Hey buddy, out of the way." But none of them raised a weapon to attack. "Think, Summer," I called, running through a hole in the other keep's wall, and wishing a second later that I'd done anything else. From the outside, this keep looked reasonably solid, but as soon as I stepped into the main chamber, I saw that it was completely hollow. Most of the 9 floors were gone, wrecked down to hold catwalks crisscrossing above me, and the ground floor, my floor, reminded me of a child's game I think I used to play. Ever hear of the floor is lava? This was almost the case. A rocky patch remained in the center, a patch that held solid gold blocks and an unopened chest. And why I didn't rush over to grab the gold and open the chest? Well, that had a lot to do with the spawner hanging from a catwalk above the island, a spawner that created magma cubes. Okay then, I said, as the first bouncy blob sloshed down before me. I'll just be leaving. And as if I needed any more reason to do so, the arrow that landed between my feet showed me that these hollowed out floors were still crawling with piglins and skeletons. I didn't say something dumb like, how could this get any worse? But I might as well have. Soon as I turned back for the front door, I found the way blocked by the original approaching piglins. What had happened to Summer? Was he still trying to get in the way of the others? How many more were behind these? They can't get all of me, I thought. Minds racing, weapons raised. Narrow hall, one at a time. I can take them. Turns out I didn't have to. At 10 blocks away, something made them all turn and head in the other direction. Wait, where are you going? I almost said, right back before I saw Summer's arrow sticking out one of the brute's back. Handy tidbit regarding those golden helmets. Their disguise only works until you attack the piglins. I'm not sure if somehow they realize who you really are or if they just don't care. Point is, once you attack, the jig is up. I rushed out of the bastion to see my battle buddy already making a run for it. She had a decent head start on the pursuing pork. That was the good news. The bad news was that the slowing soul sand allowed them to devour the distance. Yes, once they got stuck in it as well, they were as snail-paced as her. But from where I was standing, I could see that little bit of open space between them closing. What to do? How to help? A plan was forming, not fully formed, mind you, as I reached for the crossbow in my belt. Unlike a traditional bow, this weapon had to be cocked back all the way. But also, unlike a bow, cocking it meant locking it, which meant I didn't have to strain while lining up the perfect shot. Dunk. Then, core, they all turned, including Summer. Just keep going, I called over the approaching gang. I'll meet you at the path. I think she shouted something like, how are you gonna do that? But not only couldn't I hear her over the cacophony of snorts, I wouldn't have had an answer for it anyway. Again, a half-formulated plan. Phase 1 was pretty well devised, though, and that was how to stop the oncoming threat. It had to do with how soul sand burned, and with the worn flint and steel in my pack. You guessed it, a barrier of blue flame. Running along the edge of the brownish, wavy sand, I set each square alight until the C-shaped tool finally clinked out of existence. Yeah, that's right, I taunted as the snarling, grunting group halted at the whitish-blue line. What you gonna do, huh? What you gonna do? I got my answer with a crossbow arrow in the chest. Message received, I oofed, then backed up into the safety of the ruins. That was right about the time I realized, too late, that going through the infested bastion was the only clear way to join Summer. Me and my grand plans I gripped, retreating through the black brick hallway. I made it back to the lava, came face to face with a piglin brute, and chopped him backward into the flaming floor. Then I confronted the real challenge. If you found my first book I left on the island, you'll recall how, when my first house was burning down, the only way to stop the lava from my tub was to release the glass enclosed water above it. And if you haven't read it, now you know. Anyway, to do that, I had to try to lay some dirt stepping stones across the flowing fire. Unfortunately, I didn't make it all the way and nearly burned alive. A lesson that is now burned into the back of my brain for all time. And here I was again. Only this time, the dirt was black stone. And there seemed to be just enough cubes to maybe, hop to the central island and over to the other side. No way, I huffed, then turned back to hopefully find a staircase up to another floor. More piglins from the top floor, making their way down toward me. I took a half step back and A deep, possibly last breath, and leapt onto the first stone. Made it. Only 6 more to go. An arrow on my shoulder, almost knocking me into the lava. A skeleton on the catwalk above, daring me to shoot back. I cocked the crossbow and took aim, but had to quickly raise my shield to deflect its next blow, before I gave back what I'd just been given. As the skeleton toppled down for a burn bath, I hopped to the second block, then the third, fourth, fifth. I almost skidded off the 6th one, then braced myself for the island to jump. I landed hard just as a hopping magma cube landed on me. I swung upwards, chopped it back into several smaller cubes, then ran to the chest to see if there was anything I could use. I found 4 blocks of gold, 3 of iron, and a diamond pickaxe that glowed with the same mysterious light I've seen on the zombie pigmen's weapons. The tool tingled in my hand as if it was electrified, and when I reached up to smash the hanging spawner, it disintegrated the target in just one swipe. Whoa, I breathed, slipping this amazing new magical tool in my belt, right next to the fireproof potion, which I'd forgotten I had, which I didn't need anymore, because I could now see that this side of the little island was connected to the other side by a black stone bridge. I ran quickly across and discovered that it ended against a solid wall. But that wouldn't stop me. I attacked it with the shimmering pickaxe. It had to be magic. There was no other explanation. It went through the various materials like they weren't even there. I burst out of the bastion and onto ground that felt firmer and easier to run on than soul sand, and my heart leapt at the sight of a distant quartz cube. "Summer!" I shouted, running towards her with my new prize held aloft. "Look what I found." "Lovely," she answered as I ran panting up beside her. "You can tell me about it on the way." "Don't you realize what this means?" I wheezed as we booked it down the quartz cube path. "Magic items exist in this world. That means we can figure out how to do it ourselves, And we won't get a chance to do any of that," Summer wheezed back, "if we don't get to the ruddy portal." In the distance, across the plains, there was a purple glow. "And there it is," I shouted. "Salvation. Home." We halted aghast as a gas rose up slowly behind the portal. "You gotta be kidding me," I raged as the screeching bomber fired. "Here we go again," Summer, calm once more, casually sidestepping the exploding shell. The gas floated over the portal, closing in on our position. "Try to distract it," called Summer as she knocked an arrow to her bowstring. It flew, hit, but didn't do enough damage to kill. "Gordon Bennett," she grunted. "Didn't draw back far enough." "No problem, partner." I cocked my crossbow, took careful aim. We shot at the same time, and believe you me, I'd love to take credit for what happened next. Our shots met in midair. "Woo!" I cheered as the cannonball turned back for its living launcher. It missed, unfortunately, but the brief respite allowed me to knock another arrow, my last arrow, into place. The gas was moving away, forcing me to angle high. "Bing, bang, boom," I whispered and sent my sharp shaft soaring. And up it went towards the target, and down, right into the face of a pig zombie. Oops. As a group, they all turned towards us. Summer glanced at me, sighed, then charged back to the oncoming horde and shouted, "Charge!" Running, weapons up, we crashed into them with a rousing roar. A storm of blades and blows, shields, armor, flesh, cries of pain, and they stink of burnt bacon in my nose. Too many, pushing us back, blocking the way. Bree! The explosion threw me forward, and I landed in a pile of hovering debris. "Guy, it's open!" Summer's voice from behind, pointing my eyes ahead. "The portal. So close. I'm clear all the way. Go!" Up and running, eyes fixed on bouncing purple. "Just a few more steps. Bree!" The explosion behind me, throwing me into the gate. Nausea. Blindness. Gray stone. Clean, cool air. "Summer?" I turned. We made an axe swiping from my face. "A piglin brute. It must have followed me through the gate." Another strike blocked by my shield, shoving me back out of the portal chamber and into the garden. Too far to hit the iron door lock. Another strike, another step backwards. This time I countered with a sword slash, feeling the impact as I retreated a few steps, giving myself more room to swing. And those few paces apart allowed me to see that something was wrong with my attacker. It was shaking and whimpering. Was it pain? Something beyond my blow? Hey, I said, forgetting who I was talking to. Are you okay? My answer was a raised axe. I took the blow, ready to hit back, but didn't realize I was standing just at the edge of the pond. I fell in, and a familiar thought leapt into my head. Drowning! Summer had warned me. The lava cubes underneath. The bubbles wouldn't let me swim, trapped on the bottom. Feet scalding, lungs choked by boiling water. Reaching for the edge. Too high. Hands to the side, digging out steps, climbing, hacking, bracing for another blow. It never came. The porcine brawler didn't move. I was just in time to see the last of the purple bubbles pop over its now rotted face. And I suddenly realized that what I thought had been the shaking pain was actually a transformation. Summer, look, I chuckled, stepping right into its stinking face. The surface world zombifies piglins. Summer? She wasn't there. She hadn't made it through the portal. Summer, back into the swirl, ready to rush to her aid. Stop! I teetered at the edge of the floating island. That last gas had blown away the narrow netherrack bridge. And on the other side, Guy! Summer fighting for her life, surrounded by zombie pigmen. I'm coming, buddy, backing up to jump. Running, leaping, falling, lava. Think, potion, the fireproof elixir, from belt to hands to lips just as I hit the orange agony. For a moment, I was blind and burning. Then, nothing. That's right, nothing. Underwater, or more accurately, under lava. Still unable to see anything but magma, but I wasn't burning anymore. I was okay. Summer, swimming for the surface, popping up to see the cliffs rising high above her. I could hear her, as well as the snorts of the zombified piglins attacking her. Summer, I called, swimming for the bank. How'd you get up? My new super pickaxe. It devoured netherrack with blinding speed. I was almost up when the blocks fell away to more lava. Don't panic. I dove in and swam up. The potion was still working as I rose to the lava pocket's roof. How long did I have? How long before the protection wore off? Into the crunchy ceiling. Digging, climbing. I burst up right in the middle of them, swinging my pickaxe like a madman. You alright? Asked Summer, chopping at the closest undead face. That nasty spill you took. I meant what I said. Fighting behind her, the comfort of my back against hers. I will never leave you again. Swinging for the nearest Z-Pig, knocking it aside, and opening a clear path to the portal. Come on, I called. You first this time. Guarding her escape, I made sure that Summer got safely to the edge. Guy, she started. No problem, I backed up. There's more room to pick up speed. We can jump farther than I could from the other side. Behind the pig pack, opening up to shoot. Jump, I called. We can make it. The sound of an incoming gas missile. I'm not sure the piglins were closing in. Jump!
End of chapter 22.
Minecraft The Mountain by Max Brooks. Epilogue. Well, that's it, I said, laying the last square of red dust. We're done. Well, come on down then, called Summer. Let's give it a go. I stepped back from the final open section of crawl space and climbed down the ladder next to Summer. She punched out the final torch, and for a moment, we stood in absolute darkness. You do the honors. That was her. Nah, that was me. It's your show. I insist, Summer pushed, just like you insisted that we finish the job. She had me there. I reached back up to the simple wooden lever. How many times had I passed it, resisting the urge, until now? Heart racing, sighing deeply. Bing, bang, boom. Flick. And night turned into day. The main chamber's entire ceiling lit up with hundreds of redstone lamps, all wired together, all at our command. For a moment, neither of us spoke, just admiring the sheer scope of our accomplishment. It had taken over a month, going back to gather all of Summer's previously stored glowstone and then mining new natural deposits to boot. And now we were finished. Every room was lit. Well, almost every room. The mushroom and nether wart farms did better in darkness, but every other space was lit with the flick of a lever. Brill? I asked my partner. Summer nodded back. Brill. What do you think, BB? I called down to her new roommate. BB, short for Bacon Bits, didn't respond. The zombie pigman just wandered around aimlessly as he'd done since the first day of our aborted battle. It hadn't been so bad, sharing the mountain with a stinking, snorting Dee. He was harmless, and other than that time I'd forgotten to close my bedroom door and had woken up to find him standing over me, it was kinda nice to have someone else to fill all this empty space. And now he'd be my replacement. Summer's new partner when we said our final goodbye. We'd both known this moment would come, and at least on my side, it had filled me with no amount of sadness. Every night, after working on our grand project, as I was alone in my room writing all this story down, I dreaded writing the end. Not of our friendship, no more than with Moo and the Allen sheep. We'd still be connected in our hearts and minds. Friendship cancels distance, not the other way around. But like with the island, this was the end of another chapter of my journey. Painful but necessary. Necessary but painful. What to say now? How to part without tears? I'd rehearsed half a dozen speeches, each more eloquent than the last. But as I mentally fumbled for the right one, Summer spoke first with a sigh. Well, I guess this means we're off then. Wait, what? We? Of course, Summer huffed. That is, after we've packed and set everything right for the next traveler. And you have to write the last chapter of this book, don't you? As I fumbled for a response, she continued, and perhaps I could add a bit at the end. Your prize list of friendship lessons? That applies to me too, doesn't it? I was speechless. She turned to shout down to BB. And you have to remember to leave the lights on or else some baddies might spawn in the dark. Whoa, what? Still struggling for words. You're coming with me? Of course, Summer repeated and laughed that warm summer laugh. I thought you knew that. I thought we had an understanding. Well, Sorry, that's on me then. Another light, angelic chuckle. I still have to work on my communication, don't I? Fresh and 12. Friends communicate. And before I could mumble out any more mush, she looked into my eyes and said, I should have been very clear that I won't let us be broken apart ever again. She glanced out at the main chamber, or more precisely, the unseen land beyond. I wonder what we'll find out there, she mused. But I'm sure it's nothing we can't handle. Friends are stronger together. Turning back to me, her fist rose to meet mine. Because that's what we are. Friends. End of Minecraft the Mountain.